evening, everyone. Welcome to the October 10th, 2023 Portsmouth School Board meeting. We welcome everyone. We will begin with the call to order. Oh, that's me. The roll call. Dr. Haynes.
Liz Barrett.
Here.
Pip Clues.
Here.
Lisa Rappaport.
Here.
Ann Walker.
Here.
Margot Peabody.
Here.
Nancy Clayberg.
Here.
Hope Van Epps.
Here.
Brian French.
Here.
Carrie Nolte.
Here.
Danielle Miles.
Here.
Nathan Delaney.
Thank you very much. Nathan Delaney is not here because he is at a Portsmouth High School varsity soccer game. So he will not, they were playing in Bedford and he wasn't able to be here. So we wish him good luck and we'll see him at the next meeting. Okay, we have the Pledge of Allegiance. Will everyone please stand? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next we have announcements and recognitions. Would anybody like to?
I'll just quickly. I just wanted to thank the Clipper Foundation. We were earlier this evening going through a meeting with the board. Superintendent Zadovec and I just it's a unique thing that we have in this community where we have a foundation that supports the public schools in the type of way where teachers have the opportunity to apply for grants around promising practices. And the Clipper Foundation is, it's hardworking folks who are not, they're not employees of our school district, who are just really determined to make sure that we have the best possible education here in Portsmouth. And I'm super appreciative of the work that they do. We'll have more information later this year as we take on some new folks. Some new teachers are going to get rewarded some grants, but I just really want to thank the Clipper Foundation for all their hard work.
Anyone else have an announcement? I just wanted to, maybe you all saw it, there was an article in the Portsmouth Herald yesterday about how the Portsmouth High School debate team is starting its season and expected to do well once again. And I believe our football team is undefeated, correct?
Yes.
That is correct.
So another nice
Big win
announcement.
over
from
Exeter the other night.
Portsmouth High School, yes. And I believe a lot of the sports are doing well, but I just happened to see the write-up in the paper about the football team. So we wish them all good luck. Yes, Liz? do
I
you
know
have
that the band actually had the alumni come out on Friday night and played for the football game as well. So I think that's something that they hope to continue to bring the community together. So I hope they had a lot of fun.
And we have fond memories of the Portsmouth 400 parade where we had how many alumni? 250 alumni show up, band alumni. That was very exciting. Okay, we will move on. The September 26th acceptance of minutes for our board meeting. Do we have a motion to accept?
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Pip has a comment.
I do have a couple of comments, actually. There's one spot where, in the discussion of the proposals for the proposed resolution, where there was some debate about the parliamentary procedure and whether or not a motion to call the question was or required a second. And my understanding was that we did, in fact, take a vote before, or that we were advised by Attorney Morrill that we did not need a second, and so we took a vote on that. But then, after some more discussion, we went back and requested a new motion and a second, and then may or may not have voted on it after that. But I just I wanted to request that section be clarified because that's not exactly how it was written. It was written that we did get the second and before we took the vote, and I don't believe that's how it happened.
Yes.
So I would just say that this particular set of minutes has been a lot of work. So this is typically something that Paulette in my office turns around in the day after, most of the times. This was a 2.5 day process to try to create clear minutes, and it was very difficult there was a large amount of overtalk, confusion about what was on the table, what wasn't on the table, and so I think in at least one of those situations, there was a proposal to consider, it was 8 to 12, I think, it was items 8 through 12. Then what ended up happening was, and we went through it a couple times, is that a motion was on the table that was never came off the table all the way. And then another motion kind of got later on top of it. And I think, so we tried to, not we, Paulette tried to be as transparent as possible about kind of what went down, but it was, I will tell you, there were multiple watchings and multiple requests for, will you please watch this too? Because I'm not sure how to put this in writing. And to make sure that it was an actual reflection of what had occurred. So I think what is, and I'm not looking right now at the second on the lack of a second on the motion to move the question, and I'm not sure how that, I could look at that in a minute. But I do know that in particular that moment of moving from approving items 8 through 12 that got shrunk down to 9 through 12 and 8 got separated out, that there were some procedural challenges with how we went about doing it. So.
Okay, I appreciate that, and I know that this was a very difficult meeting to record. So I think my main concern, I do think it actually reflects the intention of what took place, so I'm okay with moving forward if everybody else feels that we should. But I guess my concern is that I think that we took a vote that was then nullified, and I'm not sure how, I don't see that recorded here, and I'm not actually sure how that's supposed to be recorded or whether it needs to be, but that's the piece that I was afraid we were missing.
So I think the challenge was that it wasn't formally nullified.
Okay.
So I think in the minutes, there's an attempt to try to reflect what actually happened. And I will say too, one of the discussions we had is, if you look at this section of the minutes, stylistically, it might be a little bit different than what you're used to. And I think it was because in a lot of cases, in terms of minutes can be at a lot of different grain sizes. And I think the difficulty was the normal grain size where there is some summarization of what's happening. It's not all the dialogue. It was hard to summarize it in a way that, because there were some procedural problems, you really couldn't summarize it and actually be transparent. And so that's why it might feel like the grain size is smaller, was because there were these things that we didn't want to gloss over and wanted to just be transparent that that's actually what happened.
Yeah, I'm glad it's written that way for that reason. Okay, my second question was, in our discussions of what we had on the screen in the spreadsheet, we often referred to our positions on those proposals as our votes, and it's recorded as votes. However, those weren't actual votes, so I'm wondering if we should change the wording of that to position, even though we were using the word vote. I don't know. I don't know how it should be recorded, but they weren't in fact votes.
Right.
And I worry that it implies that we were voting in some context where we weren't actually voting
That's fair.
outside of the meeting.
So we'll change that to positions. Okay. Okay, thank you, Pip. And I want to thank you for sending me the Robert's Rules of Order for calling the question. And just so that everyone understands, someone can call the question, somebody has to second it, and 2/3 of the board have to vote to move the question. Okay, so from now on, that's what we'll do. That's what Robert's Rules of Order says to do, so I guess we'll trust Robert, whoever that is. Okay, all those in favor of approving the minutes? Raise your hand. Anybody opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Oh, you're going to abstain. Oh, you weren't here. Okay, Kerry will abstain. She was not able to attend that meeting. Okay, next on the agenda is public comment. Okay, we have 2 people who have signed up for public comment, and I'll just review the rules quickly. You have 3 minutes to speak. We will be timing you up here. And please give us your name and address when you come up to the podium. The first one is Elizabeth Bialowski. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Okay. Can you come up to the podium, please? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Bialowski. I live on 35 Hodgdon Way, 03801, so Portsmouth. And then I am a former teacher. I taught for 7 years, specifically taught middle school reading and environmental sciences. And now I work with New Hampshire high schoolers across the state on environmental projects that they're working on and environmental clubs and with environmental science teachers. One of the things that I am passionate about that I think Portsmouth does really well is encompassing climate plans within our community and making sure that our community members are aware of those plans and how those potentially benefit them and giving space for comments on that. I think Portsmouth High School also has a pretty robust environmental science programs, but I had a couple of Portsmouth High School students who couldn't make it tonight but wanted to discuss that they thought that perhaps that some of the climate and environmental curriculums could be enhanced in future years and to maybe start thinking about that process now. It's something that we are working on, so if the board would be open to it, we would also love to send some of the resources that we're working on and continue to kind of come to these spaces and bring those ideas for the next couple of months.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
after? Yeah.
No, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate your time and effort. Next, we have Joni Lane.
Hi, my name is Joni Lane. I live at 64 Hillside Drive in Portsmouth. When was the last time you paid in order to check your Facebook account or had to pay a fee to watch a YouTube video? Never, right? So how do these organizations make money? How is it that Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube have become companies that profit over trillions of dollars in market value? The reason is because they've monetized our attention. They're all fighting for the attention of our children. They've created features that cause tweens and teens to become addicted to attention. Most of us are familiar with the negative impact that smartphones and social media have on the lives of young people. So I'd like to briefly address some of the positive outcomes that can come from decreasing exposure to digital media during the school day. Increases in family partnership. Teens who decrease overall smartphone use report building better, stronger, healthier relationships with themselves and with others. There's a higher academic score. Teens who decrease overall, studies show that when smartphones are not used during the day, exam scores increase by 6 to 20%. Improvements in student mental health. Between 2005 and 2015, teen depression in the United States increased by 33%. There's a direct correlation between depression and anxiety and the rise of cell phone use. Decreases in school exposure to pornography. School networks are required to use filters under the Children's Internet Protection Act. Personal devices using data plans may not provide adequate protection. Stronger support for cyberbullying laws. Almost every state has laws that criminalize electronic forms of harassment. There are only 6 states that do not, and New Hampshire is one of them. Increases dependency on district available technology in the classroom. Our district, has adequate internet-ready devices for students to use, which are all monitored. This may also be helpful in addressing concerns around the role of artificial intelligence. Increased grade honesty. A whopping 65% of students admit to seeing other students use a smartphone to cheat on tests. Decrease in student incidents. Principals notice a correlation between away for the day policies and a corresponding decrease in behavioral incidents. These are just some of the possible outcomes that can improve the mental, emotional, and intellectual lives of children in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Joni. Matt, do we have anyone on Zoom?
We have 3 people, but no hands are raised at this time.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, thank you for the,
Chair.
yes.
You mentioned the rule around the 3 minutes, but I just, in case anyone is staying to hear from us on their public comments, could you please let them know that that's not something we do in procedural
Okay,
process?
yes. Public comment, we do not respond to. So what we will do is discuss it in our deliberation when we make our agendas for our future meetings. So if a topic comes up over and over again, or if the administration and the board feel that it's a topic that we will discuss, we will do that at a future time. So, but, you know, we don't address a public comment at the same meeting. Okay, thank you, Hope. Okay, next we have the superintendent's report. Dr. McLaughlin?
So you just have a few items from me. Let me, sorry, just a moment.
I have it right here if you want it.
I've got it. So just the two items that I included. One was just about high school handbooks. We'd had some conversation last year about the need for significant updates in the high school handbooks. So now the high school has gone through the process in a little over a year of the new program of studies, new staff handbook, new student family handbook. And I just want to make sure that you were aware of that work and you had an opportunity to see the product. If you have really finite questions, I won't be able to answer those, but I can go back and get those answered for you. But I want to make sure, like I said, that you saw the product. So I'm waiting for a question.
Anybody have a question? Margot?
This might be too finite. But
I'm ready.
Do you know how this has been distributed to the students and explained, and how are we gonna? We always keep coming back to that. How do we know that understanding has been reached? And I think that's the question all schools
Sure.
ask, rather than just hand something out. So, have we changed the way in which we distribute, educate, dialogue?
So
with?
I'll include in another, in something, I don't know exactly how this was distributed this year. I think in conversation around whether it's new policies, it's handbooks, et cetera, I do think in conversation with the high school administration and most administrations that we know in that document, all the things that are in that document we don't anticipate having the time or ability to do like full, let's say, I'm going to call it lesson planning. I know that's not exactly what you're saying, but so to a certain extent, there is a certain degree to which it's like, here you go, it's a student/family handbook. And so I think my expectation would be that we are trying to, that I don't know that we'll ever have fully worked out something where we go through the entire handbook with all students every single year in a way that is scaffolded, like we would with a lesson plan. But my expectation would be that schools are thoughtful about identifying procedures that are close confusers for students or things that are commonly a concern, and that they're going to identify on any given year things that they really want to make sure they're focusing on. But I'm happy to gather the information about how the high school distributed it this year and come back and provide that in a future report.
Maybe Nathan will have some feedback too.
Yeah.
Lisa?
Two things just quickly. I mean, first of all, I like the format, and I did really appreciate the effort to make it in less legal language, because I do think that there's a huge effort here to word it in a way that, a 9th grade kid might reasonably look at this and say, I understand the words. And I think that's huge if we're asking them to follow it. I did have some sort of general curiosity about, there seems like a lot of sections where we're not clearly laying out what are their sort of responsibilities and what are their rights under a lot of the policies. There seems to be a lot more description of philosophy behind the policies and a little bit less concrete, this is what the policy entitles you to, this is what the policy requires of you. And so I'm just wondering, maybe for the second pass, if there's room to call that out. Because I think if I'm a kid, in some cases, I'm not as excited about what your motivation is. I'm more excited by what do I have to do, and what are you going to do if I don't?
Right.
And in some places we hit that, but in some places we don't totally.
Okay. Liz?
I don't know if Zach's going to talk about this in the next section of his memo, or if we can just dive into questions on that.
No, we're just talking about the handbooks at this
Okay.
time.
All right, thank you.
Carrie?
I really appreciated in this the links to the school board policies where appropriate. The one thing, like in the ones that didn't have links to school board policy, I was kind of, some of them are very related. And so I was just curious, and this is like a bigger question, like how does building policy get made in addition to school board policy or district policy? Should have prepped you for that one, huh?
Yeah, I think,
Sorry, it just came to
No,
me.
no, no,
It might not be an answer now.
and again, larger conversation. Usually, in this case, things that were changed this time around was a committee of folks put together by the principal who worked through it, and then in other buildings, usually it's similar. Now, one of the things that we are trying to do, and we've talked about this as a board, is at times from building to building, sometimes some of our stuff can feel disconnected. Still under, not in violation of school board policy, but there can be some emphasis, there can be some lines drawn in certain ways that may not be reflected in another space. So I will say that one of the things that we continue to work on as a leadership team is identifying areas for calibration between buildings. But that process per se is not specifically spelled out at the building level process of developing a procedure that is connected, that may be, a cousin of a school board policy, is not specifically spelled out. So different buildings will go through a different set of processes in order to do that. And in some ways that's okay, because if you've got a staff of 120, you're going to have a different policy than if you have a staff of 20. As long as we're still, I think, if from school to school, our stuff makes kind of, it's philosophically aligned, then I'm okay, even if it's a little bit different in terms of what's happening developmentally with kids. So.
Thank you. Hope?
So
Thank you, Carrie.
I want us to be cautious in using the language of policy in the buildings versus procedure.
Yep.
Because our school board policies are the law of the land.
Correct.
And so I know at the high school in the past, there has been a lot of blurring of the lines of this is policy. When it's not really policy, it's a procedure that does not necessarily align with our policies. So I really would like that to be communicated down to the buildings to make sure that that's something we're doing a better job in communicating. This is procedure, this is policy, and the procedure needs to align with the policy. As far as what they put out, I just can't say enough around the gratitude and appreciation I have for all the hard work that's been put in. This is so way overdue and being asked, and I think it's something that at the high school, the PAC can certainly pick up as putting out more information to parents and giving a space there if parents have questions and around it. And I would certainly encourage other buildings to give that space for parents as well. So for that, I'm very grateful and would pass on the appreciation of that. One thing that I do agree with Lisa, I don't know if there is a way to link, I mean, it would be a significantly heavy link or lift to link these policies with procedures when we have so many different procedures and they play out differently in each building. But for the future of improvements on it, if there's some way that we can just come alongside parents and students and align those things in a way and communicate that out a little bit more clearly, I think that's something to work towards.
Yep, that's great.
Okay, and I just want to say thank you to the administration, the teachers, the students, everybody that put time, as Hope mentioned, into this. It certainly is a significant improvement from when my kids were at the high school. It's a document that's attractive. It's easy to find sections that you need to learn about, and it just is a magnificent publication. So make sure you tell everyone we say thank you.
I think the best thing about it, and if Steve Canosi was here, he'd tell you it was a collaborative document. And it's not, he's not, sitting in his office creating this stuff. He's empowering teams to do the work and work together to try to develop the best thing they can. And the other thing that's great about this is it's not a PDF. It's a dynamic thing. So we don't have to wait if something was to arise where we're going to change something. We don't have to wait till the next school year to put out a printed copy of what the change would be. It's stuff that we have the ability to update on the fly. So
Okay. Can we move on?
we can. And the other pieces, and I'm sure sounds like we have some questions. So I did, on the heels of previous emails from the public and from citizens' comments, I did gather some information just about what's the status from the perception of school administrators. What is the status of cell phones and students in our schools? And I asked basically, just a few similar questions. If you had to guess how many students in your schools have a cell phone, if you have specific handbook language in your student handbook or your family handbook, what does that look like? In the past year, how many disciplinary incidents have you had related to cell phones? And then what are your just general observations of the culture connected to cell phones inside of your school? And so each of the principals gave us this feedback, and the feedback was done individually, which was good because they didn't influence one another. I think you get a different flavor in a couple places around where people are. The quick takeaways for me would be, that at the lower grades, I think there's a belief that this is not a challenge, and it tends not to be cell phones but watches. And if we wanted to work on the issue that seems to be common amongst the schools at the elementary level, are actually doing a better job of partnering with parents about not using the smartwatch as a means of contacting your kid during the day for those reasons of attention and interruption. So that was one takeaway. I think as you go through, you'll see obviously the increase as you go up through the grades, where by the time we get to the high school, we talked about the fact that effectively almost every student at the high school has a cell phone, or the perception is that almost every student at the high school has a cell phone. And that there's a growing, as you move up to middle and then high, there is a growing level of flexibility that is given to teachers as we go through each of those grade levels. But I think inherent, my other takeaway for me is inherent in all of this is there's this ongoing conversation. There's always an ongoing conversation in our society about new technologies and what is the appropriate utilization of new technologies, and what is and how should schools within society respond to those things. And I think you see it in some of the comments of the high school principal, you see this idea of cell phones exist in society, and should we be working with students to kind of help navigate that with them. Now that could be the wrong choice, and it could be that the right move is to do as much as we can to restrict cell phone utilization across buildings. Period. This has been a fight almost as long as I've been in education. We've been going through waves of battles in relation to cell phones and cell phone use. I will say that, I think the other thing you can see in most of the principal's comments is that we're at an equilibrium, but it might be the wrong equilibrium, right? And I think, but that there's not the types of battles there's not open warfare in terms of between teachers and kids around some of this stuff. But again, I think to go to the point of our speaker, but could be the wrong equilibrium. We could be at the wrong point. So anyways, I want to give you the status quo. Where we were, not necessarily looking to take immediate action, but I wanted to make sure you had an awareness based on comments that were provided before.
Okay, thank you, Zach. Are there any questions? Lisa, Pip, Liz.
I'm curious, Zach, if you had any feedback from administrators at any level that they were looking for more guidance or that they were looking for a district policy around this. It's clear that they do all have different approaches at each building level. And I think it's easy to sit up here and say, maybe we want to think about that so that we have a uniform approach. But I'm curious if anyone was giving any thoughts around that idea.
No, this is trying to be responsive to community, emails we received, and then previous citizens' comments stuff. So this wasn't generated from within. This was in response to.
Pip.
Thanks. I have a few questions and comments. First of all, I really appreciate having this information because it's very important to hear from the people on the ground what's really looking like. My concern, despite having this sort of comprehensive perspective of from the administration, is that that despite having these procedures or protocols around phone use, we're still hearing from parents that it's causing problems. And I think there's one side of that, which is sort of the general knowledge that we and mental health professionals have about the dangers of cell phone use and social media. But then there's also the sort of anecdotal reports that we're getting from parents who are whose kids are experiencing real problems with them. And that's the piece that I feel like we still need to address, because despite having these policies, there are things still happening. Like, and I hear from my kids that what's really happening in school, and it's not, the phones are not getting put away during the day. So we need to figure out how to police this situation. If we're going to believe what we have on the books, we need to do more about it, I think. And then I think that I will be the first to say that I sometimes text my kids during the day, and then I realize that I shouldn't have done that. But we're so used to it that that's the way we communicate. And I think that addressing it, as you mentioned, with parents, especially in the younger grades, and in all grades really, just to remind them that, hey, any message you send to your kid is going to be a distraction, no matter what time you send it. So it pulls the kid out of where they are mentally in school and pulls them away from what they're learning or doing. So I think we do need to message that to parents and remind them that that's, something they shouldn't be doing.
And I'll just say, we're not, we don't think that this is a core, when you get to the upper grades, parent texting is not the core issue, right? We know that. But it's I think just in terms of modeling and starting that from the earliest ages, I think it would be a good thing for us to be able to do with parents.
And then my final comment is that I have also heard anecdotally, and actually it was confirmed in what was written from the high school, which is that the phone is sometimes being used as a tool in the classroom. And my concern with that is that means that there's actually an expectation that the child have a phone at school. And if that's a choice that either the parent or the child is making not to bring the phone because they know it's a distraction, that's not fair to those students. So I think we need to be mindful of that and decide whether it needs to be a tool that we require, and if so, we have to provide those kids who don't have phones with phones, because none of them said 100% of the kids have phones. So we either need to provide them with phones or we need to say that we're not using the phones. But it can't sort of be either or, because that's not, that causes an equity issue.
Sure.
Thank you, Pip. Liz, and then Hope.
I have two, I have a question and a comment. So I know with the policy committee, we're looking to sort of get more in line with New Hampshire School Board Association with what the policies are. So I really appreciate the memo and everything that we've laid out here. But you did lay out our JICL, which has vague, the vague language there, and then the JICJ recommended policy, not required policy. But I know that you've given us this chart, and I didn't reference back to it, but do we have JICL coming up any point soon for discussion in policy?
I don't believe we were on a cycle to go back to JICL this year.
It looks like JICL was last reviewed in April of 2019. I think we should develop policy more around, the recommended policy from the NH School Board Association, and have further conversations in the policy committee to support teachers and students, obviously to help decrease some of these potential disciplinary incidents. There was like 50 plus. And, maybe I understand the schools are working, to create parameters, but I think this is a perfect opportunity for the policy committee. So I'd like to make a motion to send JICL to the policy committee to be considered with JICJ recommended policy from the New Hampshire School Boards Association.
I don't believe we
Second.
need a motion. I think that's just a recommendation to the policy
I think
committee.
we're supposed to have a motion if we want to send it to policy. Pip just seconded.
Do you have a parliamentary query on that?
Yes,
Since this
Lisa.
wasn't noticed as an action item on the agenda,
Right.
I believe we would have to take that motion.
Okay,
in.
we'll
Well,
take
none of
that
the
up-
motions,
We'll take that up at the next meeting, Liz, because
Nancy,
it
none of
wasn't
the
on the
motions from
agenda.
last meeting
It
were on
wasn't
the
on the
agenda.
agenda, and we'll take it up at the next meeting after
Nancy,
we
I
have
just-
our
there's-
pre-agenda
I had a motion
meeting.
on the
Okay,
floor,
Pip,
and there's a
Pip,
second.
Hope.
There's a motion on the floor and a second, Nancy.
But the motion,
was
I
motions
didn't
at
allow the
last meeting,
motion.
and we
I
voted
didn't
on them.
allow the motion. Liz, will you be quiet? I did not allow the
We need to
motion.
take a vote, though.
Hope.
Yes, so I just wanted to clarify, in the past, we have always had devices if a child did not have cell phones. I know we have a cart of devices besides our one-on-one Chromebooks. So is that still not the case? Because I think we are equitably serving our students in that, and I just wanted to clarify that based on Pip's concern, that each of the schools have had carts of devices, again, aside from the one-on-one
Yep.
Chromebook, that we have devices. And so if someone did not have a phone and was asked to look something up on a phone, we were providing them with that.
Yes.
Okay, so that hasn't changed. And then I would just caution us about passing a blanket policy around devices. Having had 3 kids go through the district that have all been through the cell phone era, I've seen the need for different policies at different grade levels. I do think the high school does an excellent job of taking up phones or having them placed in their backpack or having baskets for them. They've set the precedent for students to understand how to use technology moving forward with college. And I think that could be something that could be modeled for the lower levels where there's problems. I mean, 50 plus incidents to 11 or 1,000 students, whatever we're sitting at right now, is actually a very low number when you look at percentage-wise. So I just don't want to discount what's being done there. And then thirdly, I would say I definitely agree with our principal that, the bigger conversation is probably going to be around AI. And while I can see, even as a parent, that screen time and device time is important, and certainly around mental health issues, I think we do need to have the broader conversation when we talk about electronics and devices around AI, because that's where we're headed. So those are just my thoughts.
Thank you, Hope. Okay, we have Danielle, Kerry, and Brian. And Lisa.
I'm going to be cautious about the wording on this, but I do think that with the flexibility for different staff members to enforce different rules in their own classrooms in different ways leads to confusion with kids. And I know the data probably does not exist, but I would be curious about collecting data around kids who are highly successful in school and who have naturally or have already embraced student behavior in what makes them successful, and the disparity between kids who need more explicit teaching and learning around that, and to see who is using the phone, who is spending more time, and if there is a direct relation to their success in class. I know from students who are in between multiple spaces that it is extremely confusing when certain rules are enforced in certain places and then they change from one classroom to the next. And with kids who struggle to be successful without extremely clear boundaries, and help enforcing the rules upon themselves, it becomes really hard. And I know we're having a bigger conversation around what the use of cell phones or access does, and I do hear you. It's not really about the text from a parent. It is around the bigger distractions. It's about access to negative information and bullying each other and just being disconnected from the learning process for long periods of time. And I think those are the bigger issues, especially when we look at kids who are so far behind. And we've already seen what being in quarantine has done to our kids in regards to that social disconnect in real spaces and in real time. And so when we give them that flexibility to check out, even though they're physically present, classroom teachers are seeing it. It's nearly impossible to engage kids without doing a literal song and dance to keep their attention for 5 minutes. And so the more we can try and just scaffold that process, I'm a huge proponent of, I would love to see more clear guidance and then more pushing to enforce it equally across all spaces.
Thank you, Danielle. Kerry?
First, I would say I can identify with the song and dance from having college students and teaching college students. We're seeing a similar thing. I just wanted to mention, so with the motion that was just introduced and then the discussion being around it's not on the agenda, I would argue that we do have this content and there's a clear opportunity on here, and that's just my opinion, but it falls to the chair. I was hoping that within that memo, one of the things that is noted is this is not a policy the administrative team has collectively reviewed. So beyond sending it to policy, I'm wondering if maybe Zach, you can bring that back to the administrative team first and see where that is. Because I think what we've seen here in the last few months is a real disconnect from the data that you got from the administrative team and parents, and so it would be good to hear where that's coming from because there's clear community interest in pursuing another policy.
Thank you, Kerry. Brian?
Yeah, I would just, I was looking through the report and I noted that in New Franklin, it mentioned, it mirrors Dondero and the other little harbor in that, they shut off devices during the day and are not using them, but then below it says smartwatches are getting texts during the day. So it's obviously not quite following what it says, right? So there is a disconnect. Maybe the teachers don't all know the policies of the building or whatever. I do like the idea of having some consistency, at least across the elementaries. My experience in the middle school has been pretty good. I think they feel like they've got a good hand. I'm not particularly aware of what's going on in the high school, but particularly elementary kids, especially a lot of these kids are getting watches now, and it's great for the parent, but it's also, if we text them during the day or they get another, somehow another text, we got to figure out that because it's hugely distracting. The other thing I want to point out is these phones can record, like they're video recorders, they're audio recorders, and feels like there's a lot of things that can cause a lot of problems in the district, and something that is not really mentioned in here, but something that we should consider when we are talking about policies or how it, I know we're talking specifically on the effects of kids, but kids, being videoed without their knowledge and all those things seemed like there's some issues there too.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Lisa had a comment, and then Pip.
I just wanted to follow up briefly on something that Hope said about the one-to-one technology, because I do think that we have Chromebooks available. But anecdotally, at least at the high school, there's a lot of situations where teachers are specifically requiring students to use smartphone apps. And there may be plenty of educational benefit to that, but I would really want to be able to know that we have some number of spare smartphones available where the apps that teachers are using in classrooms are available to students, because they're being asked in the course of instruction while they're sitting in the room to get out their phones in some situations. And there may be good reasons to do that, but I do worry about the equity because it can't be solved by a Chromebook. So I just wanted to put that out there as just something to consider, or if we're thinking about our technology purchases as we cycle things through, whether we need to consider some number of smartphones, if that's where we're going with it.
Thank you, Lisa. Pip?
I wanted to come back to the motion that Liz made, simply because I had recommended that, or requested that this item be on the agenda, and I appreciate that it's being addressed at this meeting, but I guess I would, again, like to request that it be on the agenda as an item that we could vote on.
We can do that at our next meeting. We can get the information from Zach, and then we can discuss it at our next meeting.
Okay.
Liz?
Nancy, I feel like we've already discussed this enough, and at our last meeting, we made so many motions for the resolutions that were not on the agenda. This is an item that's on the agenda. It stinks that legal counsel is not here tonight to clarify, but I think we can move forward with this motion. If we move forward with it improperly, we can double down, double back at the next meeting, but I don't think we should be having another discussion about this at the next meeting. I think this needs to go back to policy and, have the motion ruled on tonight. That would be my preference.
Okay, I'm not going to allow it, Liz. It's not a motion that was on the agenda. What I'd like to do is ask board members if they would like to overrule me and allow this as a motion. We're trying to get through our meetings more efficiently, so why don't we discuss that? Yes, Hope?
I just have a question because I thought board members also, or general public, can also bring up anything to the policy committee for request. So could that not be a direct request that could be sent to the policy committee? And that's why the policy committee has monthly meetings as well. So if it's not taken up here, it can certainly be requested to the policy committee, and the policy committee could choose to take that up, right? I mean, is that not still an outlet?
A request for a policy can come from a variety of sources.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that we still had that outlet.
Okay. Pip?
I'm sorry, I just, I thought that is how things had been in the past, but I thought we had agreed recently that we did have to have a vote to take something to policy. Am I incorrect about that?
Margot?
I don't
recall that.
Yeah, I recall that discussion too, Pip.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to overrule the chair's agenda to add a motion to the motion that I said before, which is to have the policy committee consider JICL in conjunction with the recommended policy from the New Hampshire School Board Association, JICJ, and consider to bring back to the board.
Parliamentary.
Yes.
So I think the appropriate thing is there's a couple pieces here that maybe we're combining together. So my suggestion would be, although I'm not the parliamentarian, is that the motion would be to overrule the chair's ruling, which was the original motion, which was seconded, was out of order because it wasn't on the agenda. And then the board would consider overturning that ruling, and then after discussion, vote on whether or not to overturn that ruling. And then on the heels of whatever that outcome is, then take the next step.
Where's the motions being recorded? I don't see that where is the written motion that's being recorded? And I'd
Well,
like
that's
that
coming up in our rules, and we haven't gotten to that
Right,
yet.
but I would like whatever motion is going to be, if there's a motion voted on, I would like it to be recorded, and I would like that to be read back to make sure that the person that made the motion is being recorded correctly before we vote. And I also am a little confused of, while something is on the agenda, we're being asked to vote on something that we don't have the information to look at. So I just want that to be noted.
I guess, Pip, go ahead.
According to what you just said, though, we don't even need a vote to send something to policy. We could just request. So I was going to submit a formal request to ask the policy committee to address this.
I'll withdraw my motion.
And the seconder withdraws, correct?
That was Pip.
That was Pip.
Yeah.
Do you withdraw?
Oh, there
Well,
wasn't?
I didn't second this last one.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, fine.
Oh, for the overall, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Already
so
confused.
we're withdrawing the motion. Can we move on the agenda?
Are we going to move it to policy?
Yes, the recommendation has been made that it goes to the policy committee.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on. Administrative report, preliminary budget memo. Who's going to talk about that, Zach or Nathan?
That's
We
Nathan.
didn't finish.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The other two?
I'm sorry. The, you also have, I'm sorry, two other things under my umbrella before Nathan. It's just, you do have a draft school board budget meeting schedule that reflects very similar to past practice, where we'll effectively be opposite, once we get into January, on the opposite Tuesdays, we would be having budget hearings that would be basically exclusively connected to budget, and would put us on a projected end date of being all wrapped up by February 20th, which would be done prior to the school February vacation.
I have a question, Nancy.
Yes.
Well, two, actually. So my first question is, I wondered, looking at the meeting times for some of these meetings, some of them are regular meetings as well. I'm wondering if we could bump up the meeting times. I see some of them are 6:30, but I wonder, is there any harm in bumping them to 6 o'clock? I mean, obviously there's a lot we're talking about. If we can end earlier, great. I guess I'm just wondering if that could be a consideration. Or even the ones that are 7 o'clock bumped to 6:30, just to sort of get the show on the road. I mean, we're going to be meeting every Tuesday, and I want to appreciate, everybody's time and effort. And if we could do it earlier in the day, I would think that would be better for the admin. But I obviously don't want to speak to you guys. So I guess I'm wondering about that. So that was my first question. And then my second question is for the organizational meeting that's taking place right after the new board is sworn in. Can we plan, could that also be earlier, and could we plan to have legal do another Robert's Rules training and make sure that we're all on board, because we're going to go hot and heavy into budget season. So I'd really like to know that we're all on the same page, and it would be great for this board to get the same training that the new board members are coming, having too, and make sure that they're thoroughly trained. I think that's something that had come up, that a lot of us felt like we didn't really get a full-fledged training or Robert's Rules training, or, we didn't feel like we had that. So I'm wondering if, we can make sure that all of those things are on the agenda, and if we could bump some of these times, if obviously this might be a little bit time consuming.
Okay, why don't we take that under advisement at our next pre-board meeting when we set the agenda, and we'll bring it at the next board meeting, and we can decide whether we want to do that or not. Thank you, Liz.
Excuse me, Nancy?
Yes, Terry and Hope.
If
I mean,
we
Hope
are
and Terry.
taking that under advisement, we will need to consider that tonight when we vote on board rules.
The times that we
because the
start.
times are set within there. So I just want to make sure we make that connection. And secondly, in our formal training with our attorneys, the question was raised about having a second training, and our attorneys advised us that the best thing for new board members to do would be to watch that training, because it was recorded, so that there wouldn't have to be a second one. So I just wanted to note that for the record as well.
And we always have a board orientation, a new board orientation meeting before that January 2nd meeting. So at that meeting, we would review all the operations of the school board policies. We can do Robert's Rules. We can do whatever we want in that orientation meeting. So I know all the years I've served, we've always had that orientation meeting before the new board or the new council sits. Liz?
I guess my concern, though, is that that new board orientation really didn't feel insufficient for us, and we're looking at the 2nd. So I think everybody's getting sworn in, I think the evening of the 1st, I would assume. And then, and then we're expecting new board members to come and meet during the day. I guess I would prefer that we sort of all go together. I also think there's a difference between watching a meeting with attorneys and actually participating and asking questions and having that opportunity for us all to sort of be there and understand, and sort of come together as a board, come to some sort of, understand the agreements as a board, meet each other, have that sort of kumbaya, consensus, and understanding together before we sort of go hot and heavy, week after week into budget season. So I really would like, full consideration of maybe changing it a little bit and having the whole board there for whatever trainings or whatnot. Maybe maybe they can come an hour early and get stuff that maybe we wouldn't necessarily need to be retrained on, but I'd be, I don't know about the 4 of us that are still here. I'd be happy as one of the 4 to get that, to be part of that too, so.
We always invite present board meetings to come to that orientation. I know I've gone to them many times as an incumbent, so board members will be invited to that orientation. Yes, Zach, and then Kerry. Can we have Kerry go
Yeah,
first? She had her
absolutely,
hand up.
absolutely.
Go ahead, Kerry.
If it's on that topic, mine's on early release. So,
What did you say?
Early release.
The other memo.
Oh, okay, no, we're
another
not
thing.
there yet.
My intent would be that in trying to coordinate orientation on your behalf, that we would do that in December. It would be sometime not, so in that period of time between the election and January, that well in advance of people being sat, that they would have the opportunity to come in, get oriented through. City Legal has talked about being part of that process, very interested in being part of that process. And then having some other folks where we put together, and it might not just be one opportunity, but multiple opportunities, so that people walk in as, as well prepared as they can. You're not going to be a 10-year veteran board member on your first night, but to have a lot of kind of things laid out where at least you kind of understand some of the rules of the road before you walk in the door, some of the structures and powers of the board and how it fits within city government, those types of things, all things that we would try to lay out. But that would happen sometime in December, would be my expectation.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else on this topic? Okay, we will move on to the early release day. Oh, do you want to talk about that first, or before Kerry?
Actually, I'll turn this one over to Dr. Haynes to kind of talk through the need a little bit.
Because we've got the math pilot going on, we do have a sort of absence of any time between the October Professional Development Day and the January Early Release Day for any of our teachers to get together to specifically talk about programming, curriculum, instruction, and things like that. Even though we do have days in between, those days are used for conferences, and so those will not be days that are dedicated to any of the instructional work that we're hoping to have teachers participate in order to make sure that when we finally do decide on a program in the spring, that we've really had the time to sit down and look through and talk through all the different aspects. And so I had sent the memo to Zach asking for December 6th to be designated as an early release day, having already spoken to administrators from K through 12. That day seems to be the one that makes the most sense, and it would give faculty time to get together, talk about what's working, talk about questions that they have, and get additional support so that we can make the best selection possible.
Pip.
Initially, when I first read this, I had thought it was just for the elementaries, but is this for all the schools that we're talking about?
It would be everybody.
Okay.
Kerry. I apologize, Kerry.
No, I think
Had her
Patty
hand
answered
up
my
for 10
question.
minutes.
It's fine. It's all
do you
good.
remember your
It's
question?
just that an action is required for this, and so I guess I would just want if we're sticking with the action needs to be noted on our agenda, that is omitted here, and so we just need to modify that in the minutes that we added that. And I would make a motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
Patty requested in her memo. No, I'm sorry. Addition of December 6th as an early release day for professional development.
Hope is a second. Any discussion? All those,
Just quick discussion. I just, if we can get this out as soon as possible so people can plan and schedules and childcare and all that, that'd be great. Thanks.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see, we're into new business. Consideration and approval.
Actually, we still have
I'm sorry, the budget
administrative
memo.
report for the preliminary budget memo from Nathan.
Okay, Nathan.
Folks, I'll make it quick. I just wanted to tell you that we started the budget process early this year. I wanted to call out some of the information that's been shared with the budget makers, your principals and directors, for your benefit and the public's. Quickly jotted down the CIP process that kicks off the budget development year. We talked about that in our last meeting. We looked at the submission that we have sent forward to the city for the capital improvement plan. Internal development of the budget has already begun. Proposed budget, we were just talking about looking at the budget schedule. That'll be in January after reorganization. But as we anticipate that, preliminary notes, I think in the last 2 or 3 cycles, we've talked about the fact that a continuing services analysis, which is rolling salaries forward according to collective bargaining agreements that you have in place, reflecting taxes and retirements and insurances that are included in those contracts, recognizing the growth of multi-year contracts like your bus contracts. Those issues or those items have, as budget drivers, brought us now to a 3.5% to 4% out-of-the-box continuing services map. And so I shared some numbers with you there because that's what we're experiencing again. My rough calculation right now is that we're going to see continuing services at or above 4%. And so the guidance that's been given to the staff or to the budget makers is don't expect any additional operating dollars. We have to take a look at enrollments. Repurposing should be the watchword of the day. When you come to budget meetings, our budget review with the leadership, we'll be talking about faces and functions, talking about staffing, because that's where really the bulk of our dollars are spent. Concentrate on who is here, what are they doing, do we need them to do it? And in the analysis of positions and things, do we still need them? Are we continuing to use them in the same way? Are there changes? Is there a way that we can more effectively or efficiently conduct ourselves in terms of budget? So I guess that's it. I don't take any questions, but wanted you to know that we've started, and this is the guidance that's been given to them. Zach and Patty and I will be meeting with budget makers the end of the month, and this was an initiative of Zach's to drive us a little faster into this process so that there's more time for reconsideration and to loop back in the budget makers in the deliberative process before a final proposed comes to you in January.
Thank you, Nathan. Hope, Brian, Kerry.
Thank you for this. This is helpful, Nathan. The one thing that I would like to see built into the process that we seem to lack is closing the follow-up and follow-through loop. We continuously to have budgets come forth, a proposal of what we need in the district. There's justification, I think, always for the needs and requests that are made. I think they're very valuable additions to our district. And I think that we need to close the loop of once those positions are approved, if they are indeed approved, which most of the time, at least as I've served, they have been. What are the impacts of those dollars? Those, especially when you talk around, staffing, but just in general, if we're approving dollars that are coming from our city residents, taxpayers, and we have to go forth to the city council each year, and we're always out the gate, right? Out the gate high, we know that. To sustain those kind of asks, I think we have a responsibility to the board to have follow through of if we gave money, what impacts did that have on the district? What outcomes are we seeing from those investments? And I think we have a responsibility to our taxpayers to have that information be understood. We did provide new social workers, and behavioralists, which is a new position for our district, and all these asks that we had because of COVID that I think, again, are highly justified. And I think we need to be able to justify on the back end how those investments have improved the district or what impacts they've made, especially as we go forward and asking for dollars. So I'd like to see that somewhere built in the process for closing that loop.
Brian, thank you, Hope.
Yeah, just a quick question on you estimated about 4%, you said, for continuing services. Is that baking in the ESSER positions that we had rolling into real positions? Or that's just 4%, yeah?
So Portsmouth has done this rolling COLA, this 10-year rolling average of a cost of living adjustment driven by the consumer price index metrics that were released regularly. Our collective bargaining agreements generally call for a floor and a ceiling, and the floor has moved its way up. And so now we're talking about COLA that is really running at the 3% mark as opposed to even just a handful of years ago, the COLA was running below 2%. So we've seen an uptick, and some of that has been driven by economic forces and recognition of that. But it has made the difference between what has been over the last 3 or 4 years, 3.5% out of the gate. I'm looking now like it'll be 4. That does include a health insurance increase. We are in the middle of a biennium, so it does not include any change in the retirement structure. It just reflects new retirement dollars and taxes on new salary money. But really, this is pretty raw. I did when I did that exercise, I did include some additional increase in special ed out-of-district tuitions, because that's been a driver for us lately. And I did include, there was another thing I was going to tell you about. I included one other thing yeah. But no, I didn't add bodies. That calculation is on same people, so.
Okay, and then you talked about reviewing the ESSER spend this month and next month. Is that still the case next month, I guess?
Yeah, we'll bring you a look back at ESSER 2 and projection of what we're doing this year that we expect in ESSER 3, and then continuing services. I don't know if I'll have that to put in the packet for next week so that you have it 2 weeks from now. So I expect the continuing services will be a budget we can look at in November.
Okay.
Carrie, and then Liz.
Thank you for this preview. I'm very excited. I'll make a countdown to my budget book. It'll be my third. It's the best time of the year. I would just like to request that even in these initial things, initial drafts of budgets, we've invested money in strategic planning, and I think it's just really critical that we have the funds available to move projects and things forward, because I think losing that momentum for a year is going to be a lot of sunk costs into a plan that won't have a lot of legs. So I just wanted to mention that to add to considerations.
Thank you, Carrie. Liz.
You lay out a nice timeline here, Nathan. Thank you. I don't know if you've done this before, because I feel like this might be the first time you sort of laid out such a timeline, maybe in conjunction with Zach and Patty. So thank you for that. I guess I'm wondering, within this, a lot of us have talked about things we'd like to see or learn more about in budget season, and I think Hope brings up a good point about, having, the admin sort of be responsive to the board of these positions we put in. I think some of the positions, obviously, we'll hear about that might have been ESSER positions or temporary positions, but I guess I'm wondering, I don't see it on here, and forgive me if I've missed it in reading through this, but I guess I'm wondering, within this sort of timeline you've laid out, is there a day or a meeting coming up that we should all sort of think about maybe who we'd like to see at some of these meetings? I know we generally hear from special ed, but I've talked before about how I'd like to hear from CTE a little bit more, if there's things that we could kind of do there. I also honestly myself would like to hear from the Italian program about how that's doing in elementary schools, because I do have some concerns myself surrounding that. And so, but there might be other things that are sort of ESSER funds. I don't know if I can't recall about like the outside position for the outdoors position, so sort of hearing those updates and understanding. And so I don't know if there's a meeting coming up within this sort of schedule that we could all say, hey, this is who we'd like to hear from, so that we can give more of a heads up to these people. Obviously, we have new board members that would be coming on as well. We'd obviously want to hear from them if there's, a specific person or something that they'd want to hear from. But I know it's traditionally been like, we hear from the elementary schools, we hear from, and it's kind of, but I think we're sort of on such a tight timeline. I just wonder how that might work.
So you have those, I think traditionally, and this is not just to hear, you have those public hearing dates that are really designed, they're a different type of structure.
Yeah.
Where the idea is to have more of a free-ranging conversation with people who are at some of those cost centers. And that does traditionally tend to be the people who are your middle management people. They're coming in to tell you about why have they pushed up their recommendations to us that they've pushed up, what were the things they considered as part of that process. And then they are in a position to have more, like I said, more of a freewheeling give and take with you. And so those would typically be the types of people we would bring in. I think when I think we can work on answering questions around specific things. I get worried about going into grain sizes that go significantly below principals, because principals are the folks that I'm asking to run their school. And so you might have people in a variety of different roles inside of a building who would advocate for something they're really passionate about, but they don't have to balance it off against other costs. And so I think once you open the door to something in that small of a grain size, where you're looking at an individual program and you're asking someone who has a vested economic interest in coming to speak to that program, it's, well, why are we going with just this one little piece of that grain size and not a broad kind of vision?
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess I just wondered, or maybe my suggestion would be, if we could front load, if we're hearing from all the elementary teachers, we're hearing from middle school or high school, we're hearing from Lister, then if we could front load those, so if there's things that come up, that we're not sort of waiting until, even the first public hearing, like if we could start, I mean, I know traditionally we probably do that, but maybe just something to sort of think about of, how can we front load, get the most information, get our questions answered so we can get rolling there. Thanks.
Thank you, Liz. Lisa?
I guess I just want to broach the idea, we've talked a few times at several meetings over the last several months about trying to focus the budget conversation around people who have substantial budget requests. So I guess I would just like to try to center that, because I feel like if we have a year where special ed, for example, isn't asking for anything new beyond what they're federally mandated to provide, and there's not really a board decision to make around that, like, I love to hear from people, and I definitely like to know what all the programs are and build those relationships, but I feel like if there's not a financial decision to be made, that I'd like us to try to concentrate our efforts, so if it's possible, when you get those things bubbled up, that's helpful. And the other piece that I think is helpful, maybe it is more appropriate for a memo than a meeting, but we do sometimes hear, through public comment during budget season from teachers or from other, people in the district about things that they thought should have been in the budget that are not there. There's always something. And it is helpful, I think, to have a memo if it's appropriate, because there was a big conversation and there was a decision, like, maybe we're going to look at this next year, we're going to look at this in, a few years down the line. Just to know that in a memo, just so that we're not, feeling unresponsive to what people in the community are asking questions about, if that makes sense. But I don't want to prejudge what that needs to be.
Yeah.
But just to ask that the meetings be specific to things we actually have to make financial decisions about.
Thank you, Lisa. Hope?
Margot has a question.
Oh,
Go ahead.
So-
I'll go after you.
So my memory may be lapsing here, but I recall in our last budget sessions that we had a discussion around having fewer presentations. And because the reason we requested that to the superintendent was because it actually fed into the time that we had for actual discussion around the budget and light items and looking forward and how that would play against strategic planning and looking forward to the bigger timeline of what Nathan had so graciously put together for us of upcoming spending. And so my recollection of those conversations was that the requests would be coming through Patty and Zach, and they would have already briefed with their admin, and their admin could always certainly put together a memo of email to us that could be included in the packet that would be public, that we could then read, and then questions could be led and should be able to be answered by our superintendent because he's already briefed with his administration, and it also would save time of efficiency for our staff and faculty that can come and give us the presentation that we can actually just read. So unless I'm not remembering correctly, I thought that's what we had agreed on and was trying to move forward with. If that's correct, I would ask that we just honor that process because we learned from our last budget cycle the needs of that, and I don't want to see us even though I won't be here, I don't want to see you guys bumping up into inefficient budget conversations because we didn't take heed to what we had learned.
Agreed last time. So, thank you, Hope, for bringing that up. I think you certainly refreshed all of our memories. Thank you. Did somebody else over here? Carrie, did you have your hand up? Oh, Margot.
I was actually going to say something very similar, but remind that I thought we had hoped that when we know what those budget drivers are, so the question you asked us of, are we best using the resources that we have? Can we front load with the data that would help make the most informed decisions? So going back to Hope's position, like, so we've got math tutors. How many kids at the high school are flexing into math tutors? Are our average math scores up? Is there a difference between males or females? Because I think that hinders right into that driving question. And again, reduces the presentations. I'd love to hear from everybody, but that's not the role that we serve as to make the hard choices on what the major budget drivers are. And the people in position to narrow that down tells us what that is.
Yep.
And then let's just front load with the data to have the more rich conversation about it.
Thank you, Margot. Liz?
I mean, I guess, I don't recall the discussion around limiting, I do recall the discussion around limiting people that are constantly doing presentations or coming, and so I was thinking the same thing as Margot. If we're going to do it that way, if we're going to have these memos instead, or have some sort of understanding to you, line item by line item, obviously think about how you want to do it, but I would like to get that information up front. I do think there's some temporary positions we need to talk about, and, maybe get into I don't know if there's still, but I think there's some positions or some things that maybe we need to get into some more detail on. And, if the first meeting we're just talking about, I don't know, for an example, if we're just talking about one school or I don't know. So I guess if we're going to do it that way, then I think, but it also may be efficient to, plan and have somebody come from the school or have you present, because I don't know if there's things that they could ask that you may not have the answers to. I mean, I'm not expecting you to know our huge binder of budget and why they ask for every little detail. Obviously, I want you to know what's sort of going in there, and Nathan can probably answer everything down to the detail, but I don't know. It's a little bit of a departure from what we've done before. I know that we've talked about it in our general meetings, but I think that there's some things that we need updates on, like how is the Italian program doing? How is the outdoor program doing? I mean, we sort of hear these things, but, again, I do have my concerns. I think we also talked about special ed, and, there was some conversations about how, ways to sort of bring, maybe this is separate meetings. Maybe this isn't budget meeting conversation, but hearing more about CTE, I think that's a priority, and I think there's a lot of people running for the board right now that I heard at the committee thing are very focused on CTE. So I think there might be questions from the board that we might want to put money in areas that we didn't discuss before. So so if we can somehow figure out how to front load that or get the questions pulled in, figure out what we want, and then kind of go about it. I don't know.
Okay. Thank you, Liz. Zach?
So I would just say that when we work through this process, what we're trying to do is we are trying to give you a proposal that balances what we think is a fair ask of the taxpayer with the board's, goals. In this case, I think will be interwoven with what we're starting to see out of the Portrait of a Graduate, and as we're moving into the creating the action items connected with that. And we're trying to balance those things. I think for me, I think when stuff is usually most effective is when we're coming to you saying, here's our prioritization based on all the information of all the people on the ground, and it filtering up through the channels that we have. Here's our best attempt at pulling all these things together in a way that's organized, that makes sense from top to bottom, and again weighs in what we're trying to accomplish versus what it costs to do those things, and knowledge of the people who work on those jobs, when they might be retiring, what's going on with contracts, what's going on with the regulatory structure around us, all those types of things. And ideally, we're coming to you saying, look, here's the stuff that we feel like is foundational, that we can't touch. Here's stuff that gets us right up to the edge of where that tipping point is with the taxpayers. And then we're having that conversation with you about those items that are right at the tipping point. And I think those are usually the best dialogues. Because the concern about, once you get into those kind of things that you might feel individually passionate about your own kid being in a program or something you heard from a friend or whatever, then we kind of randomly get down into small grain size and start having conversations that are not necessarily attached to the whole. And that I've seen in a lot of boards that lead to really weird outcomes with programs that ultimately usually fail because they're not really part of the whole and they don't make sense for the people who work for you. It doesn't totally make sense that it's something that's really being pushed. So anyways, in my thought process, when I work with these guys and I work with all the different people in the cost centers, that's what I'm trying to do. Give you a comprehensive whole that makes sense, prioritize where if we needed to shave, this is the places we think it's the smartest to shave, and then put you in a position to really inform, ultimately what that bottom line is we're sending to the city council.
Okay, thank you, Zach. That was a good summary of what we're going to do. Okay, let's move on. Old business, we don't have anything under old business, correct? New business, consideration and approval to Friends of Italy book donation.
So
Patty.
it is my pleasure to read a letter that has come to the district from the Friends of Italian Americans. This is a letter that is dated October 6th to the superintendent, and it says, Dear Superintendent McLaughlin, our organization, the Friends of Italian Americans, believes in supporting community work tied to learning about and building an appreciation for Italian heritage in the United States. To that end, the Friends of Italian Americans is pleased to be able to facilitate a gift donation from the Oxford League in the amount of $1,700 to the Portsmouth School District. This gift is specifically for the purchase of Brandon Brown Vuole un Cane, published by Wayside Publishing, which means Brandon Brown gets a dog. These books are to be used by the 5th grade students who are learning Italian in the district schools. Thank you for providing this learning opportunity to the students. Sincerely, Michael Daigle, President. And this is in alignment with policy KCD because it is over the threshold for an amount. And so we just ask for action to approve the donation of $1,700 to the district for the purchase of Brandon Brown Vuole un Cane.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have Hope that moved and Brian second.
Yeah, I am, a little bit.
What did you say?
He said I'm showing off, and I said, yeah, I am.
Is there any, any discussion? Kerry?
I was to make a motion.
Oh, okay. Well, Hope made the motion and Brian seconded. Okay, any discussion? Being 100% Italian, I'm a member of that group. I didn't even know about it until.
What a good secret we kept. That's really great.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Patty.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, and I'm going to turn this over to Margot.
Thank you to the Friends of Italian
Zach,
Americans,
is the consideration and approval to establish an ad hoc redistricting study committee. I guess, who wants to go first? Zach? Zach?
Okay. Just as we have been talking, really driven by some of the conversation around some concerns around the potential for growth. At the smallest level, this has been about the potential for growth in the Dondero area, and just in general, I think the conversation we've been talking about for a while, and we should have new NESDEC reporting on our overall enrollment trends soon, but that we, while declining in enrollment as a school district over the last 10 years and forecasted to do over the next 10, that we are not necessarily, there's a possibility we're not declining in exactly the same way in all parts of the community at the same time. And if that was to be disproportionate in terms of the growth that we might see in the community coming up, that it might get us to the point where we do need to talk about the possibility of redistricting. So we had talked at the last meeting about the possibility of starting a group. We're using the form that we've used before about identifying who would be part of the group and what would be the task of that group to accomplish. I think what is really important for me is that this is not, I want to make sure the community hears, this is not we're going to redraw the lines, this is the group that's going to do it next week committee. This is a group that's going to look at the information that's available to work with folks in planning to do our best projections about what we think might be happening in the near to intermediate future, and then come back with recommendations from then about whether or not we need to take some additional steps. And so you see the makeup of some of the folks who would be part of this, and my hope is that we would get going reasonably quickly.
Yes, Hope.
So I would like to request that the one realtor would not be a member of the committee. Instead, you would have multiple opportunities for realtors to come in, or multiple realtors to come in and speak with you. I just think it makes it a more non-biased opinion and allows for different realtors cover. I mean, while they may be licensed to cover all of the city, they do kind of chime in sometimes in certain areas. So I think it would be more beneficial to just hear from multiple people as a
During the
panel
board, during the meetings.
Versus having one person serve.
Okay. Do we have a motion on the table to accept this before we have a discussion? Do we have a motion to establish an ad hoc redistricting study committee?
Motion to establish the ad hoc redistricting study committee.
And Ann and
Liz
Liz.
second.
Okay, any discussion? Kerry?
I was just curious about the ad hoc piece of this committee. As we have experienced, often we've talked about having a standard operating procedures calendar so that we don't miss things. But I guess my worry with the ad hoc component would be that we would establish it, and it seems to me like something that needs to be maybe an annual meeting, and then and to at least do an exploration of like, do we need to convene this group? Because it seems like we're throwing together an ad hoc to ask if we need the committee, and then we're throwing together a committee, and then we're doing it similarly the next year. So I guess I'm just wondering about this being a standing committee instead.
Do you have a comment on that? But, I think our plan was to establish it right now, to start studying the situation in Portsmouth and how it relates to possible redistricting in the future. So we just kind of want to.
And we did decide last year that at the end of an ad hoc year, the board has three options. Continue it on as an ad hoc for another year, move it to a standing committee, or mark it job completed. So I think if it starts as ad hoc, it doesn't prevent it from eventually becoming standing.
Okay.
So, but the point is it can get going now.
Okay. Anyone else? Lisa, Ann? Oh, Ann, go ahead.
I just wanted to comment that last time when we were looking at that, we had information from realtors that was very helpful. We knew the kind of houses that were being built, that most of them were families, small families, and empty nesters, and not children involved. So it would be great to get an update on that, because I'm sure that every time you see something in the paper, there's more places being built. And so things may have changed significantly. So that would be helpful information.
Thank you, Ann. Lisa?
My question was just around the frequency of the meetings. If it's going to be monthly, I'm just curious what we think would change in our knowledge of enrollment or real estate, in 30 days. And I'm not saying it shouldn't meet monthly, but I guess I'm just wondering if that is the right frequency. I don't object, but I'm curious.
One time per frequency, one time per month. Do you have?
Go ahead.
Brian, did you have a question?
Well, I was just thinking it wouldn't be, checking it once a month. It'd be more like, what do we need for information? It's going to take a month to get the information. That kind of. I thought it would be that kind of back and forth kind of thing, but.
No, that actually makes sense.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I don't know that once a month needs, I would say almost as needed, I guess. My hope would be that as we start to dive into to whatever the data that we're collecting, that if pretty quickly we're like, ooh, there's a problem, then we might be shifting more quickly into a conversation, because if we are in a spot where what we've identified is, let's say it's Dondero, that Dondero is going to be, that we think next year and the year after, we had a particularly large kindergarten group this year. If we think that's going to continue over the next couple of years, and it's going to put a strain on our ability to deliver good instruction at Dondero, that we might want to fast track. We might be in a situation where we're in, and as soon as possible, we want to start having that conversation with the community about redrawing lines or restructuring the way we do things. Now, if we don't discover that, then it might be a little bit of a slower walk and a longer term conversation. To Carrie's point, that's an ongoing conversation as we continue to monitor what's happening.
Okay, any other comments? All those in favor of, Liz?
Sorry, I just want to say that I'd like to be considered for the committee.
Okay, if any board member would like to be considered, please let Margot and myself know, and we'll decide. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay.
Nathan is opposed.
Duly noted.
Extra work.
Okay, now we have the rules and orders of the Portsmouth School Board. What we're going to do, Margot, Zach, and I have been working on this since September 13th, when we asked all of you to come up with comments and suggestions. We did hear from a few board members. So we've been working on this pretty hard since then. And then Nathan and Patty got involved with us, so we've had a real concerted effort here. A lot of time and effort has gone into putting these together. So I hope that everybody had a chance to review them. Well, go ahead.
I'll wait till you finish. I just wanted to, when you're done, I just want to explain what is in the document so it makes sense.
Okay, fine. That's a good idea. But what we'd like to do is one rule at a time. We will vote on one rule at a time. And there are 28 votes? No, there's 30.
30, because this is
we
double
found
28.
there was a double 28, yeah. So there's actually 30 rules. So what we'd like to do is, it's 8:35. If we could do this in a good manner so that we get through them fairly quickly, I think some of them will go easily. It would be great. If you could limit your comments to exactly what you want to say, I think that would help. But we need to get this document completed tonight, or that's the plan, to get it completed tonight. Okay, Zach.
So just in terms of what the document is, I think a board member during the last couple of weeks, I think had reached out to board leadership and asked about, well, how does this relate to our bylaws? This effectively are your bylaws. This would be your bylaws. It functions the same way for the city council. So what we did in this last kind of rework was we sat down with the rules and orders of the city council as a model, and then we went through and we had multiple waves of folks work on looking at a couple of things. One was, are there rules that are connected to the city council that aren't really relevant or pertinent to our operation? So we removed a chunk of those things. And then we did a bunch of rewriting, and some of them are really easy. They're as simple as you're doing a find and replace, and you're saying mayor, you're pulling out mayor, and you're plunking in board chair. And some of them are more complicated. We had to do some actual conceptual changes. Now, what we wanted to do is we wanted to be as transparent as we possibly could be about kind of things that were influencing some of that development process. So this might be confusing because there wasn't a cover memo, but the stuff in black, the rules, are the actual a proposed set of rules that we ran through as we did the work. We came back to Nancy and Margot and talked through what we did. We made some additional adjustments, but the black is the actual substantive stuff that you would consider. The red was stuff that I went back and looked at. Well, what are other documents that inform what you do, and try to, when possible, not give you the whole thing, but give you an excerpt that seemed to really specifically speak to something that was present in the rule that was linked to the city council. So in the first one, I'll just give you the first example. So you have this rule, which is rewritten based on the city council, the language the city council has. Of course, they are the first and third Mondays. This is rewritten to be the second and fourth Tuesdays. Some of the time language is the same. And then the documents that I wanted to make sure you were aware of was that you have a policy BE on school board meetings. It's longer than these 2 paragraphs I gave you, but these are the 2 paragraphs I felt were pertinent to this particular first rule. And then I also gave you the city charter has a section, chunks of section 6 speak to the school board. But the truth is, there's not a lot in the city charter about the school board. As compared to some of the other boards and commissions, it is a lot, but it's really still not that much. So this was a section that, again, referred to basically the city charter. It's really simple. Don't have your meeting on Mondays. Because the city council is going to have it on Mondays. And so you don't want to violate your own policy. You don't want to violate the city charter. So anyways, that's kind of what I did as we went through, and the stuff in red are trying to provide the context. Stuff in black is the stuff that was proposed as a group.
Hope.
Sorry, just a clarifying question. So this is a professional schematic thing. Can we just call them bylaws? Why do we need to call them rules and orders? They really are just bylaws. And secondly, I just want to confirm before we start walking through this process, while this does embed a lot of the Roberts rules, that this, whatever is adopted tonight from this, becomes our bylaws, and it's what we and our chair operates back against, not Robert's rules. This becomes our law of the land, binding law of the land.
So, are you okay with me?
No, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So I'd say the place where I think one of the places where this comes together is there's an actual rule around motions, and which motions, it's around disposition of motions, and then what motions you can make during debate and whatever. Now, Robert's rules, so I think it's one of them is number 9, for example. So the council, there's Robert's rules. I think when we had Bob Sullivan come in as part of the legal team, and he showed lots of different books.
Right, there's
that were
lots
Robert's
of
rules books.
versions of
And there's one
Robert's
that looks
rules.
like the King James Bible
That's right.
of
Let's be
Robert's
clear
rules,
about
right? And so the council makes the decision, and a lot of bodies do this, to say, we're not doing every single thing that could minutely happen within the furthest you could drill down on Robert's rules. We're going to go up to the 3rd floor. But we're not going any further than that. And we're going to box in what we are or are not going to do in relation to Robert's rules. And we're going to create a rule for ourselves that we agree to about how far we're going. And so I think, modeled on what the city council did, we had very similar language, which was to say, this is the box. When you're making a motion, these are the motions you can make. When you're in the middle of debate, here's when you can do it. If you want to interrupt, here's where you can do it, and there's a box around that. So then everybody knows within the giant version, what are the rules that we specifically are, or you are going to use, and what would the chair be expected to enforce.
Yes.
So,
Thank you.
Okay, Kerry.
2 questions. First one related is that in previous experience with bylaws or rules or whatever, there was a clear statement around our adoption of Robert's rules with the following exceptions or with the following clarifications, and I don't see that here. And so I feel like this isn't. I don't know if that was part of your discussion. I understand the multiple copies piece, but I think if a question comes up that is not on here, I would like us to go to Robert's rules.
I would like to say that if there's something that's not there that the board would like to have there, we could add it. We could always add to our rules. But if we keep saying we go back to Robert's rules, I mean, which version are we going to go back to? Are we going to the big one, the little one? I think if we find something missing, we can add it at any time.
I would worry that we would argue about procedure more without a stated reference, even if it's this edition, blah, 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 blah. But that's just, I'm just voicing that. I don't need to
And again, remember what Attorney Sullivan said that night, the chair has power to set rules. So if there's something that can easily be determined by the chair, then perhaps we can just do that. If it's something that the whole board feels they need to get involved with, we could do that. But we need to adopt a document that we can govern ourselves by. And we need to do that hopefully tonight. Let me go over here.
Sorry,
go
I
ahead.
have 2 questions. And then my second question, and I think this comes to possibly sort of the chair rules, but my impression is that between our chair and vice chair and the superintendent, you have sort of had like almost an executive committee or something to that effect, where this is much clearer to me, or reads that it is the chair, and then only in the instance that the chair is not able to serve, am I interpreting that correctly? Okay.
Yeah, then the vice chair serves.
Right. Right, but in the agenda planning is Zach in consultation with the chair, or the superintendent in consultation with the chair. And I'm just curious if I can ask like Margot about those changes in the roles and things like that, because I think it was more practice that you were involved in that, and it was something we all supported, and then this is putting it into procedure. So
I think it's just falling back to the standard custom of a board where the relationships with the super is simply with the chair. We this year, you're right, these 2 years that you were on, we modified in support of the board of moving that direction. We had a new super coming in, we had a lot of changeover, and so the board moved in that direction. But this is more copacetic with other board.
Okay.
Board.
When I was appointed the chair, I asked the vice chair to work as a team with me. So for me, it's always been the chair/vice chair. In previous, I've been on the board for many years, it hasn't been like that. It's been just the chair and the superintendent. I opted to have a different plan, and Margot agreed to it. So that's how that happened. If the next chair decides they want to work that way with the vice chair, that's fine. It's whatever.
Can we talk about that section when we get to the Rule 4? Can we
Just a minute, I didn't call on you, Liz. Lisa is next.
I just want to follow up on the idea that these are bylaws. And I guess my question around that is where we fall down is there are not consequences for failure to follow any of the
That's correct.
general ideas. So I guess I'm wondering what the thought is here. I mean, I hope that we have rules and it's clear and everybody's totally set and has good guidelines to follow at the meetings. But if they're not followed, I guess I'm trying to understand then what.
It's the role of the chair to make sure the rules are enforced and abided by. If a member violates the rules, then there's a consequence where the chair, in this case the vice chair, would meet with that board member and discuss how they're not following the rules. It's in our policy that that's what we do when a board member does not adhere to rules, or it mentions a couple of different instances. So no, there's nothing really binding in this. There isn't, except that we all hope that everybody will obey these rules, and if you violate and if you don't respect, we have a policy for that. So we can go to that individual board member and say, we have to work out this problem that we have. Okay. But technically, in the city charter is the same thing with the city council. There's not anything in the charter that says you have to obey these rules. But you have to operate with some set of principles, and that's what this is. Hope.
I would note that there are procedural operations within this and within our policy and within city that a chair can ask a board member to leave a meeting if they're not following the rules. So there is that repercussion. I also would note that bylaws are amendable. So you're right, Nancy, things can be changed. And I really want to note for the record, because I feel like we talk a lot about Robert rules, but for the public to understand, Robert's rules is not legally binding. Robert's rules is a template of operational procedure with many different versions. It is also a template that many school boards do not even refer to or use. So I just want that to be clear on public record so people don't think we're not following the law. Robert's rules, they are not fake. So I just, want to say that.
Thank you, Hope, for that clarification. I actually did not know that, so thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, motion. Oh, yes, Liz.
I guess I would really like to do what you first said and go through each rule, have a brief discussion if there is any questions on it. Like, Carrie brought up a good point about the agenda. I would really like to sort of delve into that a little bit when we get to that rule, learn a little bit more. Or at least maybe we vote on it and decide whether we want the vice chair there when we get to that section. What I'm not seeing, as people are sort of bringing up like what they're not seeing on here, is I think it's a good point that there's not this. We go back to Robert's rules. If it's not in this rules section, I think we should include that. So I'd make a motion to include it, and the reason why I make the motion is because there's within these rules. Like for example,
Liz, I'm going to stop you right there. We're not making motions right now to add anything. We're going to go through each rule. If you want to add something at the end, you can add something at the end.
Everybody just talked about things that are missing, and there's not a motion. There's not an opportunity like a motion to overrule the chair. That's not within the rules. So there's a list of motions that are okay during debate under section. I think it's 4.
All right, we're going to start with number 1, Liz. All right, stop, Liz. Can we have a motion to approve rule number 1? Can we have a motion to approve rule number 1?
So moved.
Margot, and second. Okay, now, the rule is the regular meetings of the school board shall be on the second Tuesday of each month. A second meeting may be scheduled on the fourth Tuesday of the month. Executive sessions may commence at any time after 6 p.m., and the regular board meeting may commence at any time after 7 p.m. And then Zach included the 2 paragraphs from BE of the school board policy, and then the school board charter, school board meetings that talks about how you can't have a meeting on a Monday night, which we all know anyway. But,
notes, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. So, any discussion. What I think we should approve is the rule, which is in black, and then keep the red underneath it just for clarification. So we're not voting on the red, we're voting on the black. Hope, Pip, Liz.
So a couple of things here. On the black, it says anytime after 6 p.m. or anytime after 7 p.m. Again, if that's going to change due to the budget discussion, that would need to be amended. But also, we now set times. Our posting is not after 7 p.m. Our actual meeting posting is 7 p.m. So I want to be very clear about that. It's not 7:01, it's not 7:15, it's 7 o'clock is when we post. So that needs to be, I think, just corrected grammatically. Also, I'm a little unclear because it wasn't clear when this information was sent to us that we were really focusing on the black. I thought we were also focusing on the red. So in the red, it speaks about the superintendent of schools shall be responsible for establishing an agenda for the meeting of the board. I just wanted to make sure that that aligned with what has in Rule 4, that the agenda is set by chair and the super, and that the superintendent's responsibility is establishing the agenda. So I would like, just for alignment of the rules, for the red to include that, if it's possible, but now I'm confused about where the red came from.
The red is board policy, just so you know. So that's the current policy that exists.
Okay, so I would need to make a request to the policy committee to amend the policy. Okay,
Correct.
I can do that. Thank you.
Okay, so can everybody make a note of that the policy committee will consider changing that sentence? Okay, now as far as the times go, I believe the reason why it says any time after 7 p.m. is if a public, non-public goes beyond. Sometimes we go beyond and we start at 7:05. So this gives us permission to start any time after 7 p.m. And I believe that's why that's there.
Okay, but are we bound in any way by posting 7 then? I mean,
No,
I don't have a
no.
problem with it, but I just didn't know
Right.
legally, so I just.
No,
was checking.
I think it's fine the way it is.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, does anybody else have any, oh, yes.
And then
Yeah.
me.
I wanted to comment on your suggestion of leaving the red bits in there. I had the same trouble that Hope just mentioned, that I didn't quite understand that we were only supposed to be focusing on the black, and I appreciate the extra information, but I also feel like it could get a little confusing because we have the rule, but then there's this extra information that is not the part of the rule. So I wonder if we might just instead reference the policies that apply to the rules so that we have a place to go and find the extra information, but it doesn't muddy the waters of our actual rules.
Does everybody agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, continue.
Okay, thanks. And then I just wanted to bring up the fact that in January and February, we do meet every week. So how does that work into these rules? I know they're not regular meetings, but.
I'm going to let Nathan take it.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to answer the question earlier when it came up. You have had a practice, long-standing, and the public has been made aware that your regular meetings, which is traditionally your second Tuesday and fourth Tuesday, begin at 7. You sometimes have preliminary things go on. You have a non-public, you have sometimes even a work session you might have scheduled, but your public engagement is at 7 o'clock. So that's why that rule is here. And Pip, you just said it in answer to the alternative, or the in-between Tuesdays. Those are special meetings. Those are not regular board meetings. So you have started those traditionally at 6:30.
It was a budget.
Yeah, for budget work session.
Because they're
That's
hearings.
Yeah, but
Rule 2.
it refers only to the.
Regular.
Okay, I see.
Right.
Because
So
the
later-
presumption
Two
is
goes
that
to
we
special.
have
Yeah.
we have the regular meetings and then the special meetings fall in between. That's what you're saying. So those are considered special meetings.
Yeah, any other time. And remember, I mean, if you look
Okay.
back just at the last couple of years, you've had other things. We have an evaluation of the superintendent tonight, and you scheduled it for 2 weeks out, and you have, a special meeting to talk about this particular topic. Those are all special.
Okay.
This rule is really talking about what is it that the public can plan to show up for every month as we go, so.
Should we call the rule regular meetings? Right, or regular meeting nights?
It clarifies regular and executive.
Nancy, can I
sounds
have my
regular.
We
turn?
have meeting nights and then we have special meetings, so I don't
There's
I don't
another
feel
rule for
strongly, but I
special
know in
meetings.
policy, we're trying really hard to name things as exactly what they are, so.
Nancy?
Yes, Liz.
So I guess I propose an amendment to approving this and say executive sessions and special meetings.
No, there's another section for special meetings.
but
if you turn it over.
I know, but this section is talking about meeting times, and the special meetings doesn't talk about meeting times either. And so I guess I'm just concerned with some of our meetings starting at 6:30. Those aren't executive sessions; those are special meetings. So I would make an amendment to the motion to say to add and special meetings after executive sessions on Rule 1. Executive sessions and special meetings may commence at any time after 6 p.m.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Do we have discussion?
Nathan is.
Nathan?
I just want to caution you against restricting when you can schedule your special meetings, because you have, over my 4 years, met at 8 o'clock in the morning, you've met at, when you have to meet, you have to meet. You don't want to govern yourself,
But-
which is why the special meetings are an exception to the regular meeting rule, and you have not specified a time.
So what
withdraw
are
my
the,
second.
if we're,
Wait a minute, wait.
Second withdrawn.
Oh,
So we need a second to
I
have
still
a
have a
discussion.
question.
We need a
Nancy.
second to have a discussion. Do we have a second to that motion?
We're still discussing it. I'll withdraw my
no,
motion. I'll withdraw my motion.
The motion is already withdrawn because the seconder withdrawn.
Okay, and I have a question to Nathan's
All right,
point.
ask your question.
I guess I'm just wondering, we're saying executive sessions may commence at any time after 6, but we're planning all of these, these aren't really special meetings. Like the budget meetings aren't really special meetings, right? Like we're
Yes,
planning.
No, they are. Because they're, anything
only
that's not a
happen for
regular
them.
meeting,
Yeah.
and just to be fair, right, executive session, that's somebody's code for a non-public meeting.
Right.
Right, that's you've got, historic Portsmouth language extracted from the charter and extracted from the boards, the council's rules that have been here for many, many years. So when we, executive sessions, maybe, if I were going to make an amendment, I'd say non-public sessions. Because.
Is there any?
Liz, you don't have the floor. Okay.
I just wonder if there's any harm in making it 6:30 instead of 7. Like, why all? Like, obviously historically we've been 7 o'clock, but is there any harm in making it 6:30 so that if we wanted to start a meeting at 6:30 and be more mindful of admin schedules?
Okay,
and
Carrie,
time?
what do you say?
I think I can think of 2 examples in the last few months that have been 6 p.m. starts, and so I'd like to retain what's here. And those were with a teacher reception at 6:30 and a retirement reception, where then we had to have non-publics. So I think that this to me fits what we are currently doing, and although it's challenging, it's rare that we start at 6.
Hope.
It says anytime after 6 p.m.,
Right,
which
right.
leaves you to be able to make it 6:30 if you want.
Right, exactly.
Those are for executive sessions. though,
Okay,
Nancy.
Margot.
I'd like to move the question.
Do we have a second to move the
Yes.
question? Do we have 2/3 of a vote to move the question? All those in favor? Do we have 6 people? Okay. Move the question. All those in favor of Rule 1, we're going to change executive sessions to non-public sessions, and we're going to say, if you want more information, please refer to School Board Policy BE and City Charter Section 6.3G. Okay? All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, Rule 1 passes. Okay, let's go to Rule 2, which is special meetings. Special meetings may be called by written request of 5 or more members of the board or by the board chair. The party calling for the special meeting shall make every effort to schedule the meeting at a date no fewer than 7 days from the date the official notice is published to the city website, if at all possible. The meeting notice shall be posted at least 24 hours in advance of the meeting. And then we have from Policy BE some more information about that. Do we have a motion
Motion
to
to
accept Rule 2? Do we have a motion?
Motion to accept.
Liz and Pip.
Oh, Liz and Pip. Okay. Do we have a discussion about this? So this would include budget meetings, correct, Nathan?
Yes,
Okay.
and anything not a regular meeting.
Okay.
I guess question.
Wait a minute, you're not out of line. Lisa?
Quick question just on the timing, because we're inconsistent throughout the rules with the number of days or hours that we're specifying for notice. So I wonder if we want to consider being consistent with that.
This came out of the city charter, correct?
That's correct.
Is
Are
that
they
how
all
the
over the
city
place,
charter
too?
does this?
They might be.
This is how the council does
Okay,
this?
okay.
Okay. I think-
Okay.
Yeah.
So the 24 hours would only apply then to the special meetings and not to our regular meetings? Okay.
Correct.
That's it, thank you.
Liz, did you, Pip, Liz and then Pip.
Yeah, I guess I'm just wondering from Nathan, when we are posting budget meetings, are we labeling them special meetings?
I'm sorry.
When we post budget meetings, when we're posting these extra meetings, are they labeled as special meetings? I just want to be sure, if we're going to call special meetings and we're not going to, we're going to be scheduling at 6:30 or things start at 6:30, that they're always being labeled special meetings versus executive meetings, or, if they're non-public and they start after 6 o'clock, great, but,
I think,
We do.
I think generally speaking, yeah, Paulette normally
Maybe we
does
just
call them special meetings for the purposes of budget work session.
yeah, maybe we just want to be mindful of that after creating this rule.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Any other discussion on this rule? Pip?
Quick question is whether the superintendent can call a meeting. Would that just go through the board chair, and therefore the board chair would be the one to officially call it?
Yes.
Okay. And then I just wanted to note, for the sake of consistency, if we could put the digit 5 after the word 5 on the first line there.
Oh, sure.
To be consistent with the other numbers, that would be great.
Yes. Thank you, Pip. Pip, you're always so good about that. Okay, any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, we're on to Rule 3, posting of meetings. All meetings shall be posted on the bulletin board outside the superintendent's office and on the City Hall bulletin board, as well as be published on the city's webpage at least 24 hours prior to the date of the meeting. Board members will receive meeting materials via email no later than the Friday prior to the date of the scheduled meeting. And I think Paulette makes a real good effort to get it to us before Friday. So, do we have a motion to accept number 3?
Move.
Carrie?
Ann and Carrie.
Carrie, okay. Any discussion? Hope?
So I just want to confirm that all meetings, that was written with ad hoc and standing committees in mind as well, correct, for postings? And then secondly, I'm curious as why the school board website is also not a place for our postings of our own meetings.
Isn't that the city webpage? When they say city webpage, they mean the
We
school.
were thinking of it the same as.
We're on the city webpage.
Well, I know we are, but it's not. Okay, okay, that's fine.
Okay.
I won't get into
Lisa?
I wonder if we can consider in this era where people don't really use bulletin boards, potentially having language to also share it on Parent Square or electronically so that people may have better access to the agendas.
The web page isn't sufficient for that?
It's not always.
Nathan?
This is more just about, I think, getting it out to more people in our community who can't ever find information on the website because it's very hard to navigate. I'm not,
Sorry, I didn't even raise my hand then.
Oh, I thought you raised your hand.
Sorry.
Just to clarify, Madam Chair, that was my point about, like, I think when we say the city website, people don't think about going to the school board website,
They don't know where to
right?
find it.
Parents think school board website, they don't think city website. So.
Kerry, thank you, Hope. Kerry?
I just wanted to respectfully disagree with Lisa about that because I think Parent Square is already a huge burden for parents. And I just don't know, unless we want to put like an embedded link, like there is a link to the superintendent's office or something like that. I think separate announcements of each meeting are not pertinent to 99% of the parents. And so I would prefer not to have that specifically in here, but maybe there's another follow-up communication thing that we can do about how we want to get it out.
Okay, does everybody accept that as an explanation? And we'll ask Zach to work on that with his administrative, with Patty and Nathan, how we can further get get it out. You don't seem really convinced.
No, I would say I'm trying to be very conscientious of your rules. I presented something for you to consider. I do worry about with Parent Square of gumming up that channel of communication. So we're happy to explore. Again, the rules are what's the baseline, right? And so the baseline would be we're going to put it up on the school's webpage. We're gonna because we legally need to. We're going to post it in 2 locations physically, and then we're always going to, and then we can explore other ways in which to better inform our parents. But I would say, I know my wife has been like, oh my God, how many messages do you guys send out on Parent Square? And I'm like, come on, we're trying to communicate well. And she's like, oh. So I would be worried about adding additional volume to Parent Square.
Lisa?
Okay, I am hearing a lack of interest in that idea, but I still feel that it's not well publicized. I wonder if we could instead consider the homepage of the school department website instead of burying it where you have to dig through all the city meetings to find it. As a compromise. So we're not emailing people all the time, but when you go to Portsmouth School Department, it would be right there.
Okay, did you hear that?
And that may take some
It
time.
is, right?
It is there.
It is there. It already lives there.
Because it's a subset, I'm sorry.
You've got to go through all the tabs and then.
It's right on the page. I think it's right on the front.
Okay, well, he's looking, Liz.
I guess I just
and
want to
Kerry.
briefly say that I think this meets like the requirements legally that we are mandated to do based on the city charter, and so I'd prefer just to keep it at a minimum. We can sort of explore, maybe we share out on social media, maybe I get on my Facebook page and say, hey, here's the meeting tonight. I think I could be better about that. But I think as of right now, I think we should, I have a motion to move the question. I think we should, I'm not going to motion to move the question, withdraw, but let's just, I'd like to
the question, I second it.
Okay, motion to move the question.
The question has been moved and seconded. Do 2/3 of the people agree that we should vote? Anybody not want to vote? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Pip, thank you for giving us that procedure for the calling the question.
Here we go.
Okay, number 4, board meeting agenda. The board chair, in consultation with the superintendent of schools, shall set the agenda for the meeting. Board members that have a request for agenda items must submit to the board chair by the Friday following a board meeting. Items submitted will be considered for future meeting agendas by the board chair and superintendent. Members should expect that requests may take school administration 2 weeks to develop relevant researched responses. All reports, communications, policies, and other matters, including on the agenda, shall be submitted to the office of the superintendent by 12 p.m. noon on the Tuesday prior to each board meeting. And then there's some clarification from School Board Policy BE. And we're asking the policy committee to change that to the superintendent of schools and the board chair. And then in my case, it was the chair and the vice chair. So, but we're not going to change the language because the next board chair might not choose to do it that way. Do we have a motion on the floor?
Motion. Carrie.
Carrie, second?
Second.
Margot, any discussion? Liz?
When we had the meeting with legal, I'm sorry that I didn't write in about this. This is sort of a lot to digest, and I really appreciate this document and how thorough this was. I don't know if Paulette or Zach or who put Margot or who put all this together, but I really appreciate that we've taken the time as a board to really, follow the lead of City Council and create rules like this in a formal government process. And so I just want to say how much I appreciate that. I do want to add for this rule, though, a couple questions. A question that came up at the meeting was City Council, they considered different rules around agenda making, and they created a rule that allowed each member to limit one item on the agenda. And I'm wondering if, I sort of would get back, with that said, I'll get back to that. And then another question I have is, so I guess I'm wondering if that was considered at all. And the other question I have is whether it was considered at all if we could make new agenda requests at the meeting. Because I think we had some dialogue around that at the meeting with legal. So I guess first from everybody that pulled this document together, was there any discussion about new items coming up at meetings? And if we could, just put it on the record, I'd like to add this on the agenda and walk away from it so we don't have to separate email about it.
I think we've discussed this before. We cannot have board members making motions during meetings or bringing up subjects to be discussed. It's not fair.
No,
to
for
our
the next
superintendent,
agenda.
to our assistant superintendent, and to our business
No, I'm talking
administrator.
about for the next agenda items.
And you follow this procedure. You get it to the chair and the vice chair the Friday following this board meeting. So if you have something for the next board meeting, get it to Margot and me by Friday.
But was there ever any discussion about being able to just say it in the meeting and be able to walk away so we don't have to sort of revisit and go back and circle back?
No, we've never done it that way.
I guess Margaret's shaking her head.
Remember we said that, I thought we had said that if during a meeting, like for example, tonight the cell phone policy came up and it was discussed that is going to move to the policy committee for consideration, which will eventually come back to some form to the board. So that is essentially, I think, like asking for, but it was also discussed that that's not a set in stone that will be on an agenda. It is just simply as the conversation moves, can we take that further in a future agenda? So it can be done, not in
So you're
writing.
saying we're always going to need to circle back. We can't just throw it on,
We don't want to put the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, and the business manager in an awkward situation during a board meeting. So that's why we're asking board members to submit their requests to the board the Friday after a board meeting.
Okay. So I'd like to make
And that's what this rule is saying.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to allow each board member to have one item on the agenda, or limited, I guess, and limited to one item on the agenda.
Again, you come to the board the Friday after the meeting, and we'll put that on the next agenda.
But I'm making a
So we
motion
already do
to
that.
fall in line with the city council and allowing board members to have an item on the agenda.
That's not the way the school board has operated. We've always said, if you have an item you want on the agenda, get it to the chair and the vice chair the Friday after the meeting.
This is something we discussed in legal, though, that we need to make a rule around it. So I'm making a motion to allow
All right,
board
do we have a
members
second to her motion?
to put one item on the agenda.
Okay, there's no second. Let's move on. Lisa, Hope, and who else had a comment? Lisa and Hope.
I just have a quick logistical question about the language around the Friday following a board meeting, because we do have periods of the year when we take some breaks, there's vacations, it can get a little bit wonky, and I wonder if we could instead consider, 10 days in advance of a board meeting, or whatever you feel is appropriate, I
Yeah,
just
that's a
think
good
that would be
point.
clearer and easier to understand, because we always know when the next meeting is, but we don't always know about, like, there could be a huge lag time between that Friday after this meeting and when the next meeting is.
I think that's a good suggestion. Do people think that like 10 days before the meeting?
Is that fair? I mean,
it's fair.
That's what we've always done.
Yeah, I think that's
Okay.
pretty much what we've done anyway, right? Do I need to make a motion to amend it, or can we?
I don't, does everybody agree that's a
think we
good
just say-
idea?
Are we talking calendar days or working days?
I think we would say calendar days, because 10 working days would be like, right now, I'm giving you notice of stuff that I want in 2 weeks while we're sitting here, right?
So 10 calendar days is what you're saying.
Yeah, but we aren't saying calendar days anywhere else, we're just saying days.
Okay.
Right? So,
We should
We should
specify.
specify, because that
Which is a fair
request
point.
and an action that needs to be made by a board member. If it's misinterpreted, then their request could go unnoticed. We should specify.
So calendar days, is that?
I'm fine with calendar days, but then I
Okay.
think that's a fair point. We might want to say calendar days in the other places where we're specifying a number of
Search
days.
for that.
Okay. Okay, has that come up in any of the rules we've
There
already
is
passed?
another
1, 2, 3.
7 days, so rule number 2, where it says 7 days, we say 7 calendar days.
7 calendar days. Okay, does everyone, I don't know, think we need a motion. Does everybody agree to those 2 changes? In rule number 2, we're changing it to no fewer than 7 calendar days. And in rule number 4, we're changing it to 10 calendar days. Submit to the board chair by 10 calendar days following a board meeting. No,
prior to.
Okay, just before, yeah, just
Before the next board meeting.
before the next board meeting, okay. Okay, let me just get this down. Okay, I think we have some comments. Hope and Pip.
So, with respect, Madam Chair, I'd like to just correct the record that the school board has not always operated in that fashion regarding request, because it is recorded in public meeting that we have operated in the past board to take requests at meetings. I'm not suggesting that should be the case. I just want to correct the record for that. And secondly, we have discussed as a board many times about having agenda item requests being transparent and known to all board members. And I feel like we've never quite solved for that as a board member. I'm not sure where we've landed for that, but I do feel like if we're making rules and operational procedure, if that's still a concern for board members, this would be the place for the discussion. Thank you.
So can I just ask, if a board member makes a request, it should go to all the board members?
Well, that is something we have discussed, is that there have been requests that have been made, but there's not transparency or understanding about what requests have been made. So if that request is denied, it could be a request that other board members are making as well, but our public forum is really the only place that that could be openly known and discussed amongst board members. So by not having any place for discussion around future agenda items, it's not, I don't want to say it's not transparent, because I don't think we're trying to hide anything by any stretch of the means. It just makes the process, it locks down the process, I think, a little bit more. That's
So
all.
if you were going to add to this, what would you say? How would you say it?
I'm not necessarily suggesting to add anything. I think that could be at the leisure of the chair, of how the chair, because every chair operates differently, but that could be at the leisure of the chair of how they want to inform board members of past or current requests.
Okay.
But again, I just would like to note that it is something that has been brought up in discussion by board members, and if it's still an area of concern or issue, this would be the place to address it
okay.
before we set something in.
Okay, let's continue that discussion then and see how the board feels. Kerry?
Quick follow-up to that. I think this is similar to the request for information process that we had brought up and sort of put on hold for this. I think that's a really good way to do that, so that there's a written record of what people want and the board can review them collectively. But I in the interest of time, prefer to move forward with voting on these and then bringing that up to a future agenda. And I will request it 10 calendar days prior to a meeting.
I have no problem with that.
Okay, Pip and Zach.
My question is a bit related to Hope's, and I would say that we could add a line that says, a summary of agenda requests shall be shared or published at each meeting or something, so that there is a documentation, and it wouldn't need to list who had requested them, but how many requests there were or what the requests were, in the interest of making that very transparent. I'm also okay with what Carrie suggested. But the question I had was, if an agenda item is requested and the chair and superintendent choose not to put it on the agenda, is there any recourse for the board or a board member or more board members to request it again or to make sure it does end up on the agenda eventually? I don't see that in this rule, and I'm just wondering how we would handle that.
Well, what I've done in the past is if we get a request and we discuss it at the agenda meeting, I always get back to the board member about if it appears on the agenda, then I don't get back to the board member because the agenda goes out a couple of days later. But if it doesn't get on the agenda, I've had a practice of getting back to that board member. However, we haven't had a lot of requests, so it hasn't happened that often. But we certainly could carve it in stone if you feel comfortable with that. I guess it depends on the chair, whoever the chair is,
That would be my concern. If
Yeah.
if the chair,
There should be some kind of.
If the whole board wants something, but the chair doesn't, I think that's a problem. So
Right.
So I would like to see something in there, but again, it's something maybe we still have to work out. So maybe we add it later.
Okay. All right, we can do that if everybody's agreeable to that. Zach and then Liz.
So I have two, one going back to Carrie and then one going back to, connected to this conversation. So it's just on what goes on the agenda, and I think thematically this connects to the conversation we had about policy committee. The agenda and the policy committee are a finite resource. Like, it's not an endless well. Like, we only meet, like policy committee, for example, we meet once a month for an hour, and then whatever homework we're going to have outside of it. I think it's important to consider in that situation and in other situations that I would argue a single member's request for the policy committee to do something, or a single member's request for the whole board to take one of its 2 monthly meetings to do something, is not an efficient way to use your finite resource. That you should, as a collective, make a decision as to whether or not it is valuable for the policy committee, a limited amount of policy committee time to engage a certain topic, and you vote on it, you decide, and you're going to farm it out or not. Same thing with things, things on the agenda. If you got into a single member with no gatekeeping from the rest of the committee, you could do this. All of you could have 9 different one-offs every meeting connected to things, and I think that you'd have a really inefficient way to, we never get to the business of like core stuff that like we, who you pay to do your work, need you to do. And the other thing I'd say is that I've worked with a lot of board chairs. Nancy's my 6th board chair, I think. And there's always this conversation about what happens behind the curtain when we create an agenda. Like what is happening back there? How does it work? How does the sausage get made? And I think the key is that that's always going to be there. There's going to be that tension. And I think what becomes really important is when you vote to organize and pick a chair, that's a really important vote. It's a really important decision to make because the chair is really important in driving what you do. And you have to have some modicum of trust in your chair to help navigate and make decisions about how things are going. And you have a mechanism, and I'm trying to set you up here, but you have a mechanism where if you don't trust your chair, you always have the ability to reorganize at any time. But I think it's really essential that sometimes we're trying to create these mechanisms that really flow back to the need to trust the people you put into leadership positions. And if you don't, then you need to make other choices sometimes.
Hope?
You said
Oh,
me
Liz,
next.
I'm sorry, Liz.
I'd like to make a friendly amendment to change must on line 2. It's the end of line 2 there. Must on line 2 and shall be in the second paragraph on line 2, beginning of line 2 of the second paragraph, to should be. If I have a second, I'll discuss.
What are you changing must to? Both of those to be, should be?
Must and shall be to should be.
Okay, so.
Or should. Should or should be, whatever's grammatically correct there, but I think you could do should be for both.
Do we have a second? Okay, the motion dies. Let's go back to the original.
Nancy, can I have a question though?
Yes.
I guess my concern, and maybe I should have said this before I made the motion, was that you're creating requirements, and I think that there's things that come up, something happens and you're asking for a significant amount of time. I understand we need that amount of time, but things do come up. And so I think that instead of creating must or shall, there should, we should consider should.
Okay, well, the motion did not pass, so
Okay,
thank
and then
you,
I have
Liz.
another question here. So we also, in what Hope said, what Pip said and what Zach said, that brings up my concern of, we say we're not going to use Robert's rules, or we don't say in here that we're going to use Robert's rules, and we list out a bunch of motions in the motion section about debate, but we're not including the motion to overrule the agenda, which is of the chair. In the case that something were to come up like that, so that would sort of be our gatekeeping there. I understand trusting the chair, but I think our gatekeeping is a motion to overrule the chair to add an item to the agenda. And so I would prefer that language is added somewhere. I don't know if this section would be the most appropriate. Maybe it is. And so I guess I would ask the superintendent right now, or I don't know, I guess I make a motion to add, or a friendly amendment to add language surrounding the Robert's Rules motion to overrule the chair, unless we're going to include something about Robert's Rules as a default in this.
Do we have a second to the motion? The motion does not carry. Okay, yes, Hope.
So I would like to just go back quickly to PIPS. While I can appreciate everything that Superintendent McLaughlin said, I do think sometimes board members can request something for an agenda and it's just simple timing is off for the reasoning that it doesn't make the agenda. So I do think it is very pertinent that board members have the right to re-request to the chair that if it cannot be accommodated in the next meeting, that it could be continue to be on the list for consideration for the appropriate time of the discussion. I think that is appropriate. Again, our attorneys have reminded us that we do only meet once or twice a month, and this is the only forum that we have as board members to have those discussions. So I would like to see, I could make a motion if I need to, or that language be added. That request can be, that a board member, if denied, is given the reason why of the denial, and that the request can be revisited for a future time on the agenda.
Can you provide language for the motion, and where would you add it?
Well, I guess out of all the rules, it seems like this would be the most appropriate rule to add it. Is everyone?
If you're making a friendly amendment, I will second it.
We need to know what
But
it
it
is.
needs to be in writing.
Yeah.
We have to find out what it is first, but
I was gonna
thank
help
you.
you write it if you
Okay,
don't.
go ahead. and help
Okay,
me
go ahead,
write it.
Pip.
Yeah, but I just want to make sure. I feel like this is the most appropriate place, but if people aren't in agreement with that, or the superintendent and chair feels like there's a better serve, then I'm happy. I'm not married to it being here. So if not, then we can create draft language for that.
No, I think this is the place to add it, if everybody agrees. And Pip, do you have suggested verbiage?
Could I respond to Liz while that is come up with?
Yes, go ahead.
Are you good?
Go ahead. Pip will work on it, and what do you have to say?
So I was looking at the Rule 9, which is coming up, and I think that's motions during debate, but I would say, Liz, I understand what you're saying with the overrule of the chair. I think that needs to be a different rule within there because it's not a motion during a debate. And if you want to do that, I'm just in the interest of time, I would prefer to get through these, and then in following meetings, we can add additional rules or modify rules.
And I think there is a rule in there that talks about overriding the chair.
26.
26, number 26.
I'm concerned about we keep saying, oh, well, we can come back and amend and amend and amend and amend, but the point is to vote. I know that, like, it should be the exception, not the rule that we're going to amend. Otherwise, why are we doing this exercise?
No, I agree. I think we should add what you want to add to
Thank
this
you,
rule.
thank you for putting up that rule,
Okay,
26.
Pip, can you give us some language?
Yes, how about?
This is a motion to add to Rule 4.
Friendly amendment.
Friendly amendment.
Members whose agenda item requests are denied may resubmit their requests. I don't know when.
At a future date.
At a future date.
For future meeting,
Okay.
for future agenda
Request
consideration.
for future meeting
future
that
agenda
would be
consideration.
appropriate to timing.
Okay, so members whose agenda items have been denied may request that agenda item,
For future agenda consideration.
may request that item for future agenda, agenda consideration.
The period after resubmit.
Okay.
Submit, period.
Do we have a second to that friendly amendment?
Wait, hold on. Was there going to be more about getting an explanation of why you're denied? No.
Well, I always do that. I don't know. I don't know if we need.
I second that.
Okay, we have a second. Okay.
Amendment, we're good.
Yeah, we have a second to the
have to
friendly
vote on the
amendment.
friendly amendment.
Okay. Can we vote on the friendly amendment?
Could you reread the, yeah, because I think Nathan and I are both trying to take notes on this, and so could you
Okay.
reread the actual language?
All right, why don't we let Margot?
Oh, no, you have it. I was taking
Members
notes.
whose agenda items?
Yep.
Members whose agenda items have been
Requests are
denied
denied.
may re-request that item for future agenda consideration.
Or just say, members whose agenda item requests have been denied may resubmit.
Oh,
Period.
okay.
Skip the rest.
May resubmit, okay. Okay. All in favor of this friendly motion, friendly amendment? Anyone deny, anybody not in favor? Okay, let's go back to the original motion, Rule 4. So we've changed 10 calendar days before the next meeting, and we've added that last sentence that we just voted on. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Number 5.
I would like to motion to accept Rule 5 and 7, 5, 6, and 7 as a block.
Oh, that was a good idea.
Second.
Do we have a second?
Yes, second.
Okay. Can everybody take a minute to read? The board chair shall take the chair at the hour appointed for the meeting and shall call the members to order. A roll call shall be taken to determine if the quorum is present. If in the absence of the board chair, the vice chair will preside.
Motion to move the
The
question.
business of all regular meetings and lists all the, okay.
You need a second on her motion.
seconded
Oh,
it.
sorry, thank you.
All those in favor, any discussion?
No, we had a motion to move the question, so now we
Oh,
have to have a
do
second.
we have a second to move the question?
I don't know if I can do
Do we have 2/3 of the board to agree to move the question? Okay. All those in favor?
Got it for you,
That was
Nathan.
pretty, that was good, that was well done.
All those in favor?
Done.
Thank you, Kerry, for creating that block.
Wait, we didn't have discussion.
We moved the
Oh,
question
the
to
question,
vote.
moved the question and we voted.
Parliamentary
I did
inquiry.
not
Oh,
receive that.
The person who's requesting to move the question must be
Acknowledged.
acknowledged by the chair before calling
speaking.
them. They're not,
Okay.
they're not
Just
allowed
like-
to
I
call
did
that.
not do that.
There's a lot of discussion happening at the table.
Okay, Hope, would you like to discuss?
Yes, on rule number 7, one of the things that we have been able to do in the past is change the order of our agenda if need be. So we've been able to move presentations up if people are waiting or the order. So I would like to make a motion. Well, I
Friendly
don't even know
amendment.
if I want to make a motion.
No, I don't think you have to do
But
that.
I would like to see that.
So
Okay,
the,
Zach.
I was just gonna say, in general, with all these things, we get to up ahead, and you'll where the heck is it? Suspension of the rules. So on any of these different items, you'll see the city council sometimes, when they want to move the agenda around, they'll say, I move to suspend the rules to move such and such up in the agenda.
Fine.
And I would say the other example they do all the time is, I move to suspend the rules to allow us to go to 10:45 to consider our, so
Great. As
that's
long
the-
as we're going to use that as that.
so all of these rules by, the board can vote at any time to suspend for a particular period of time.
Okay, so if the chair would like to take the vote for all of them, I'm ready to vote.
Okay, all those in favor of 6, 7, and 8?
Wait,
Oh,
5, 6, and 7. Sorry.
5, 6, and 7.
I just want to confirm that in these, I guess it's only in 6, where we will again include the reference to these policies instead of all the content in red. Are we doing that in all of them now where the red is included? Okay.
Yes. And also, I think there's some city charter suggestions and comments in there too.
Yep.
Lisa.
Lisa.
I had a question, that's what I meant.
I have a quick comment. I don't love having a mandatory Pledge of Allegiance as we're moving towards a more diverse population. Not all people will say that, not out of any disrespect to the country, but out of certain religious beliefs. And that is the direction that a lot of public bodies are moving. So if people were comfortable with leaving that as an optional thing instead of a mandatory thing, I would put that out there. And also that if we are moving the question, the person who's doing it does need to have like their hand up and be acknowledged.
Okay. I'm
Fully
sorry,
happy
that was
doing
a
so,
mistake
but
I
just
made.
wanted to say that
was
bit
a
about
mistake.
the pledge.
Okay, Liz.
I guess I just want to follow up with what Pip said about including the from policy. I find this super helpful that these are entered in. And so I guess I wonder if there could be like what we publish on the website, what we publish to the public, and then keeping this document, Zach, keeping this document so we don't just delete it and it goes away, that this is like a working document that maybe all the school board members, or I guess they would have to post to the public too, but we'd all have access to, so that we could obviously we have the document today, but let's say a policy changes or whatever, I guess it would be nice to continue to see this information. And so I don't want it to be lost if we're just going to delete and publish the rules. Like I think we should have a clean copy, and then we should have this other copy that may be available for reference, if that makes sense.
Zach.
I think I got it, but the last part, so if I'm leaving out something, I apologize. Our intent, this is the great thing about the city council, is the city council has it on a tab, and it's city council rules. My intent was the same thing. It would be public, and it's there, it's available. People know what it is. It's, you don't have to go find it someplace. If you're sitting here, you quickly pull it up and you can see it. So that's our intent. I think one of the things we've been working on collectively as a district is continuing to create documents that say what we're doing process-wise, so that it's clearer and that people feel it's fair. And I'm glad to see the board moving in the same direction.
So, but just to be clear, can a copy of whatever our final copy is, can we have a copy that's rules that are everything that's getting published on the website, and then have a second copy that maybe is provided in our packet maybe next time, so we have a copy that has all these references? Because I like the references. I mean, I think, Paulette could probably hold on to a copy, you guys will have a copy, but just so that we're publishing that extra copy to the public, and we're also all getting a copy of this one that kind of gives us more guidance. So if we ever wanted to
Yes,
sort
we
of
can
reference.
definitely do that.
Okay,
We'll
all
be
right.
sure every board member has a copy.
All right, thank you.
Pip, do you have your hand up?
Yes, I'm not sure if we responded to Lisa's suggestion about the Pledge of Allegiance, but I just wanted to follow up on that and say that I would, I wonder if we could put optional in quotation, in parentheses next to it, if we are going to leave it on.
Do you want to make a motion that we do that?
If I were to make a motion, I would probably suggest we remove it altogether. And I'm not sure that that's well, I will make that motion. And if I have a second, then we can go from there, I guess. I would like to remove the Pledge of Allegiance from the order of business.
And do we have a second? Lisa. Do we have any discussion? Liz.
I guess I think this is.
Ian. I'm sorry. Ian was first.
Okay.
I really object to that, because we are part of the government, and we should be doing the Pledge of Allegiance. Doesn't mean that you have to speak it if you'd rather not do that. That's my view.
Liz.
I
Thank
guess I agree with Anne in the sentiment that we are a public body, and so we are pledging allegiance in that sense, to the government. But I also think that we still ask our children to do it every single day, and so I think although it feels a little out of place if you don't believe in God, and I think you could obviously not say that word or sort of step back from it. I like the sentiment of moving in more of a progressive way and understanding that people do not say God. It would be great if we had a new Pledge of Allegiance, but that removed it to some extent. But I think I have a little hesitation. I kind of like the sentiment of us doing it, especially when we're asking our children to do it every day.
Okay, thank you, Liz. Any other comments? Kerry, Brian?
I prefer the optional as a note. So I would not be in favor of removing it fully for the reasons that Ann but I would be very supportive of adding optional there, just as an indicator that we want to be more inclusive.
Brian?
I agree with Carrie. That's exactly what I was going to say.
May I modify my amendment? I mean, my motion?
Yes.
No, it is amendment. It is my friendly amendment.
I just have a quick question before you modify it.
Yes, go
I just
ahead.
want to clarify the option that we're discussing is it what Anna's talking about of standing and just not saying it, or is it the option to just sit and not participate at all? What is the we're saying option, but what is the option?
Well, I think we always have the option not to speak it. I mean, that's my understanding.
Mine too.
But I think what I mentioned earlier, and what I think what we're talking about is on this document in our rules stating that it's on the agenda, but it's optional whether we keep it on the agenda or not. So it's an optional item on the agenda, and I guess that would be up to the chair and the superintendent whether we.
I am opposed to this vehemently. I love our country. We're part of the government. We're part of the city. I think we need to thank our country and our city, our state, for having the school, this fabulous school district that we have. I love our country, and I want to acknowledge that at every single meeting that I attend. I don't think it should be optional. I think if you don't want to say it, don't say it. But it's got to be there because we live in the best country in the whole world. And we have a fabulous school district because we have a country that cares about our kids, our schools. So I am vehemently opposed to putting the word optional. Hope and Kerry and Brian.
I guess I'm just trying to think about our constituents at large. We just had at the high school time at halftime at the football game to honor those that serve underneath the flag. So for me, I personally feel that here as a board member, whatever your beliefs, religiously, politically, or otherwise, you have the ability to opt out. So I don't know by making it optional if then we have a chair that does remove it. I guess I just would want to hear from the public about that, because I think that's slighting a lot of constituents, but it can also be argued that this is slighting a lot of constituents by having it on. So before we, just made that decision as a school board that's writing it in our bylaws, I do think that there's more consideration from our constituents that should be taken into account if we're sending other messages by the events that we're having within our buildings. That just, to me, those messages don't align. That would be my concern.
Thank you, Hope. Kerry, Brian? Brian?
What I meant by a note that was optional was not to make the agenda item optional. My note was to simply say, you can say it or not. That was all I was trying to suggest.
Okay.
But I do think, personally, I think we should keep it on. But certainly making it completely clear that you don't have to say it if you don't want to, or say parts or whatever.
Kerry and then Danielle.
Same.
Oh, okay. Danielle. Thank you, Kerry. Thank you, Brian.
Participation optional? Quotation marks? Yeah.
Okay, we have to, I guess we have to vote on this.
We didn't even know what the
What's the
amendment
motion
is.
on the floor?
To put optional next to Pledge of Allegiance.
No, her motion was to remove it.
Yeah.
No, I modified my amendment. Yeah.
If you put the word optional, that can be interpreted, we just went through the exercise, it can be interpreted many different ways. So I think if you put anything on there, you have to define what that is.
Optional means it could be removed by the chair and the superintendent, and in our case, the vice chair. So if we sit down in our agenda meetings, the three of us decide we're not going to do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I think that's what they were trying to clarify, that was not the suggestion, though, that the suggestion was to try and let community members know that their participation in it is optional, to make people feel welcome.
I didn't understand
That's
that.
what
But that's not what Pip said.
Wait a minute, who made the motion?
But that's not Pip's
Pip,
motion.
what is the motion that you made?
The motion that I made was to put the word optional in parentheses next to the Pledge of Allegiance. I would be happy to amend my amendment one more time to say participation optional in parentheses next to the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay. Who made the second? Do you remember who made the second? Lisa, do you agree to that second?
Sure.
Okay, so the amended motion has been seconded, and the word, it's going to say Pledge of Allegiance, participation optional. And we have Zach.
So mine's just a,
Individual participation optional, right? We're not saying.
Anybody that doesn't want to participate doesn't have to participate. So you don't have to say individual, just participation optional.
so something, and we'll get to, I think when we get to talking about writing down motions, we'll get to this. But I think a really good piece of advice from the legal when talking about our process was the discussion is not a motion. The motion is the motion.
Right.
And so we get confused sometimes where we start with one motion and then we have a discussion and it wanders and people add things, and maybe the original chef wants to keep some of the things get added, maybe not. But I would suggest that sometimes that's a common place where we get confused and lost is let's be formal about what is the motion, what is on the table, and then make adjustments formally to that motion if need be through amendment. And then that way we never get in a situation where people are like, what are we voting on?
Okay, I think this is clear now. Pledge of Allegiance in parentheses, participation optional, which means if a person decides not to participate, then they don't have to participate. Is that correct? Okay, let's move, can we have a motion to move the question?
Can I speak on it real quick?
No,
Motion
can we
to
have
move
a?
the question.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Brian, do we have 2/3 of the board agreeing to move the motion, move the question? Okay. Do we have six people?
I don't know if we had 2/3.
Do we have 2/3?
Roll call.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, we have 6. All those in favor of?
Nancy, roll call, please, on this one.
Okay, roll call. Please, Patty.
This is going to be for numbers,
No.
This is to move the question.
to move the question.
Of the Pledge of Allegiance,
No, we
in
already moved the
parentheses,
question.
participation optional.
No, but we had already voted to group these.
5, 6, and 7 is what we're doing right
We
now.
have the amendment first. We have to vote on the amendment first. Then we vote on 5, 6, and 7.
We're in a nest of.
Don't always do that.
Yes.
Okay, Rule 7, Pledge of Allegiance, parentheses, participation optional. Liz Barrett,
No.
Pip Clues,
Yes.
Lisa Rappaport,
Yes.
Ann Walker,
No.
Margot Peabody,
Yes.
Nancy Clayberg,
No.
Hope Van Epps,
Yes.
Brian French,
Yes.
Carrie Nolte.
Yes.
Passes.
Okay, now we have to vote. Thank you, everyone. We have to vote on the motion to approve 5, 6, and 7.
I don't want to slow you down, but if I may, I just want to clarify that this will be the first thing you won't like about the minutes next time.
Yep.
Because we fast-tracked 5, 6, 7, we moved the question, and we voted it, 9-0 on 5, 6, 7. Then we thought maybe we didn't like that, and we went back and we've talked again. Now we've amended a motion that's already been approved. So when we put it in the minutes, and I understand that Hope didn't understand that, but the way it will reveal in the transcription, boom, is we did it. So now you're going to vote again and there will be 2 votes on this same motion. And
Well, I have a
we have to-
parliamentary, there was a parliamentary inquiry where we had made a mistake.
Right, but when the minutes come out,
Yes, I
you
understand.
did it multiple times, you know what I mean? Like
I
it's-
agree.
and
But I
she's
think we
literally-
should note the
She's literally
parliamentary
having the transcription do out all the words, and then she's trying to work with that. I just caution you that when we try to get going and run instead of walking, this is what we ended up doing, just to.
I think we should recall that motion initially, right, to be proper on the agenda.
Should we revote 5, 6, and 7 with the change to 7?
I think we have to.
Well, we voted to approve 5, 6, and 7. Then the discussion came up where we wanted to change that Pledge of Allegiance component. So we voted to do that. So 5, 6, and 7 are staying the same except for that. So why
I
can't
would
we
say
do
you're
that?
done right now. And then
Okay,
5,
we're
6,
done.
and 7
Okay.
have been
Amendment to
voted,
7.
and 7
With the
has then been
amendment to
amended.
7. Okay.
Can I
Okay.
just request for future that the minutes are read back to us? Because I feel like things are moving too fast. Like, when I missed the vote, it's because 3 other people, there were 4 conversations
Okay.
happening. Like,
All right,
we need to
we'll
slow
try to
down
make
on
it
a vote
more-
and a motion.
we'll try to make it more
Someone
organized.
makes a motion, then we need to have that motion read back from the person taking the minutes.
Okay, we get that. Can we move on to number 8? Let's move on.
Because number
to
8, I think, answers this question.
Okay.
So,
Disposition of motions.
We voted on 5, 6, and 7?
Yes, we did. We voted on it. Every motion shall be reduced to writing. Now, this is new for, we did vote on it, and then we voted on the change with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Go back.
So okay?
Okay.
We voted on 5, 6, and 7, and then we voted on the change. So 5, 6, and 7 is the same, except for the change to number 7. Okay. Disposition of motions. This is something new. Every motion shall be reduced to writing. Everyone's getting a yellow piece of paper? Did it go down that far? Okay. A roll call vote shall always be called if a member of the school board is attending the meeting electronically or by telephone. After a motion is seconded and stated by the board chair, it shall be disposed of by vote of the board unless the mover withdraws it before a decision or amendment. A friendly amendment is one in which the member amends the motion and the originator of the motion and the seconder agree on the change. Friendly amendments accepted by the originator of the motion shall be voted by the whole if any member of the board requests a vote on the amendment. A motion may later be withdrawn by the member who made it. It is not necessary for the member who seconded the motion to agree to the withdrawal. And that is something that I didn't know, Part D.
Motion to
Okay.
approve.
Second.
Rule 8.
Second.
Did you get that?
Yep.
Okay, is there any discussion on this? Hope.
So it says originator of the motion and the seconder agree on the change. Friendly amendments accepted by the originator of the motion. Should it not say the originator and the seconder? Should it not read as such?
Where are you?
In C, the first sentence and the second sentence. The originator of the motion and the seconder agree on the change. Friendly amendments accepted by the originator, but they're not just accepted by the originator, are they? Aren't they have to also be agreed upon by the seconder?
Make a motion.
So I'm not making a motion, I'm clarifying right now.
May I help?
Yes.
Do not
I
agree on
think I would suggest the answer to it's a great question. The first sentence in C establishes that a friendly amendment is one that the originator and seconder must approve. And I think that maybe the language got lazy. Friendly amendments, when voted or when requested by one member, must be voted regardless of whether the seconder agrees or not. So somebody offers a friendly amendment. You, the originator, say, I got it, that's fine. Your seconder says, that's okay. Somebody calls and says, no, I want us to vote on that. It doesn't matter at that point whether there was a seconder or not, we'd have to vote. So it lays on top of the first sentence.
Okay.
So it's correct the way it is.
Well, it could be clear, it could be clearer, but I mean, that's.
It's clear in process.
It's a process. It's not intended to leave out the seconder. It's simply to say, even if the seconder says, yeah, it's cool, if a member calls for a vote on that, then we have to go vote.
Okay. Does everybody understand that? Kerry?
I have a motion on a motion form. I believe that what would clarify that for me, what Hope was talking about, is I think in C, accepted by the originator of the motion is redundant to the first sentence. So my motion is in C to remove accepted by the originator of the motion, where it would just read, friendly amendments shall be voted on by the whole if any member of the board requests a vote on the amendment.
Okay.
Perfect.
Now that's a friendly amendment, correct? Do we have a second to
Second.
that friendly amendment? Okay.
Second.
She has to pass it forward.
You have to pass it to us? So
Reread it
In
again.
the motion.
in section C, it says friendly amendments shall be voted by the whole if any member of the board requests a vote on the amendment. So we're taking out the words accepted by the originator of the motion. We're taking out that phrase, accepted by the originator of the motion. So the sentence reads, friendly amendments shall be voted by the whole if any member of the board requests a vote on that amendment, on the amendment.
That was the motion. I second. I don't
No,
know
that
if you
wasn't the
had a
motion,
second.
it was the friendly
It was the
amendment.
friendly
Liz seconded.
Made by
The
Carrie.
motion is to vote for 8.
Right. And Zach has a comment.
No, it stays here.
And this is, it's perfectly fine.
Oh.
So this is the language as written was the exact language for city council. That doesn't mean you shouldn't change it, but just to be clear, that is exactly a word for word from city council, and I think you're fine to change it, and I think it's a good change.
Thank you, Zach. Okay, Pip.
I just want to make sure that that is still accurate, because is it true that if the originator of the motion does not accept it, that we could still, that anyone can still request a vote? Nathan might have an answer to this.
I would suggest to you that if a friendly amendment is offered and the originator declines, then it's an amendment being offered
Yeah,
as
it's not a
opposed to a
friendly
friendly amendment, at which point you'd need a second and it would be voted.
But this is a friendly amendment.
So then what we're doing would not work.
No, would work.
The distinction is whether it's a friendly amendment
Right,
or
well,
a regular amendment,
so-
I think.
Right.
But for a friendly amendment,
For a friendly amendment, so I guess don't get caught on whether it's, the question is, like a roll call, do we want to vote on this, or do we want two people to just agree that that's okay? And in some cases, we've had enough conversation that when a friendly amendment is offered, the originator says, oh, I'm good with that, and the seconder says, I'm good with that, and we're all fine to just let that now be the motion on the table. But if anybody opposes that, they may oppose it not because they're opposed to the notion, but because they want there to be a vote taken and recorded. If the originator's not interested in the friendly amendment in the first place,
Why did
then-
they make it?
then the person who is making or offering the friendly amendment has the right to offer an amendment.
So it basically just allows you, a friendly amendment allows you, a friendly amendment is a move for efficiency. It allows you to skip a potential vote if it's not necessary. That's why it's there. And then, but you always have the ability to offer just the plain old amendment that would require a second and a vote.
I withdraw my second on Carrie's new motion. Unfriendly amendment.
I had a second over here.
Well, I
Do
thought
we
I
have
was
another
a second, but I
second?
withdraw my
Hope?
second.
Okay. Hope you,
For the language that Carrie presented, yes, I would
okay, so
second
Hope is the second. Okay, let's move, Brian.
Yeah, I'm a little confused because it actually sounds like if you take the language out now, it doesn't give you the efficiency that we were just trying to
Yeah.
achieve. So I think there's something missing there. I think the original language is right, but it's not really well understood. That's what I'm getting at because basically it's, we basically with taking it out, you're saying you're always voting on friendly amendment.
No,
amendments.
only
No.
if any member of the board requests a vote on that amendment.
Right.
If nobody makes the request, then the friendly amendment sails through with.
Okay,
that
I
simple
gotcha.
process.
I
It's
gotcha.
only if somebody says, no, I want to make a vote on that.
I need a vote on this. Yeah.
Okay, are we ready to vote? All in favor?
I'm sorry, can you read it
Are we
again?
voting on the amendment or the
The
motion?
amendment only, because I have more to add to the other one. The other, like another part of this.
The chair could
All right.
state what we're voting on.
Okay,
please.
we're voting on the friendly amendment
To
to
line C.
remove accepted by the originator of the motion.
Wait, hold on, can you read that? I'm sorry.
and I don't mean to
What is
slow
the
us down.
motion?
Go ahead.
But Carrie made the motion initially and Liz seconded it. This is no longer a friendly amendment. This is now Carrie amending her motion and somebody, Hope, seconding that amendment. Because-
I didn't hear Liz second it. I thought that Hope seconded it.
Well, Liz, we recorded it
It
as Liz.
okay, got it.
But Liz withdrew her second, Hope put in her second.
And what are
So
we voting on?
We're voting on the Part C, friendly amendments shall be voted by the whole if any member of the board requests a vote on the amendment. We're taking out the phrase accepted by the originator of the motion. So everybody take your pen and cross out accepted by the originator of the motion. And that sentence is what we're voting on right now. All those in favor?
Roll call, please.
Patty?
Liz Barrett.
No.
Pip Clues.
No.
Lisa Rappaport.
No.
Ann Walker.
No.
Margot Peabody.
Yes.
Nancy Claiborne.
Yes.
Hope Van Epps.
Yes.
Brian French.
Yes.
Carrie Nolte.
Yes.
5-4, motion passes.
Okay, now thank you.
I have discussion.
Now we have to vote on, there's no discussion. We have to.
Nancy,
we
you
vote
let her
on-
make an amendment. I haven't even discussed this at all. There's something I want to point out on this rule.
Point of order. Can we just have people called on before they're shouting?
Yes.
Can I be recognized,
All right,
please, Nancy?
Liz, go
Thank
ahead.
you. Okay, so when we had the legal discussion, it was brought up that we need to adopt our own rule about when we talk about motions, because there's been a whole process where oftentimes we have this whole discussion before somebody makes a motion. So there's the most common way, Bob said, is that no one says anything until someone makes a motion and then it's seconded, and then we have our discussion. I would prefer that method, and I don't know that what we talked about in legal has translated into this document. So please correct me if I'm wrong, but I would make an amendment to add that no board member shall discuss a topic until a motion is made and seconded.
Do we have a second to that motion? Okay, motion
I
fails.
guess, can I ask Zach, is there a way to
No, we're gonna move
clarify
on.
this?
Liz, we're moving on. We have a lot to
But
do
this is
tonight.
gonna make our meetings more efficient in the
Well,
future.
it didn't, you didn't get a second,
But
so
I guess
we're moving on.
I still
Okay,
have
let's
questions,
have a
Nancy.
vote on,
Parliamentary inquiry.
yes.
It's 10:01. We need a motion to move past.
Well, we haven't passed that rule yet.
Oh, I thought we did.
No, we didn't
Wow, we
pass
haven't
that
got
rule
suspended.
Never mind. Sorry. Withdrawn.
Okay, let's have a vote on rule number 8. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Liz.
Okay, passed. Oh, Liz didn't.
8-1.
8-1, okay. Now we're on number 9. Motions during debate. When a question is under debate, only the following motions shall be received: adjourn, take a recess, raise a question of personal privilege, call for orders of the day, table the motion, move the question, limit or extend limits of debate, amend, question of order, suspend the rules, or object to consideration of questions.
Motion to accept Rule 9.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Do we have any
Brian.
any discussion? Brian?
Yeah, just on a few of these, I think there needs to be clarity around how many people need to vote, because I know on a couple of them we've done move the questions like 2/3, and maybe some of these other ones aren't. So just some clarity on around what the vote needs to be. And maybe you know all of it.
I
don't know.
don't
No,
know.
but a quick
I don't know.
table inserted here that had
Yeah.
the motion, second required or not, and
Right.
Okay.
whether it's a majority or a supermajority.
I'd
Yeah.
like to amend my motion. Nancy, can I be recognized?
Liz, just a minute. So we're going to add a quick table that explains how many votes are needed for each of those.
Motion.
And you know what it would help too is a brief explanation of what all these different things are.
Yeah.
That would help. Quick table that explains what they mean and what the procedure is.
Nancy, I'd like to add that as a friendly amendment to my motion.
You have to.
Write it.
Hold on, so just wait.
Okay,
And
just,
you have to.
be
fill out,
recognized?
you have to fill out one of.
I agree with this. We haven't,
Point of
this
order.
isn't something that we agreed on.
All right, stop. We're working on number 9. Go ahead.
I was gonna say we just read on it when we passed 8.
Yeah.
We didn't agree on the form, did we?
Yes.
Yeah, it's right here.
Part A of Rule 8.
Okay, quick table, you will give us a table that explains what each of those ramifications are and what vote is it 2/3, is it 1/3, whatever? What vote is needed? Okay, Nathan, you got that?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any discussion on number 9? Liz?
I'd like to add what you just said as a friendly amendment to my motion to
Okay.
accept this so that it's clear for the record.
Okay, can you write that
what
down,
we're all
please?
accepting.
Write it down on the yellow paper and pass it down here.
Well, the rules aren't done. Like we have.
I will
We just
write it.
voted on
I don't-
putting everything
Well,
in
you
writing.
just wrote it down, Nancy, of what they're doing. So why can you just do that as your friendly amendment to my motion to make this nice and clear here? Like,
All right.
it just seems like too much.
Okay, do we have a second to this amendment?
Yes.
Second. Any discussion?
I have just a quick question.
Yes.
I like this idea very much. I think it would be helpful to know whether it needs a second,
That's what the table says.
how many votes it takes to pass, and like what it means in English.
Can you repeat that?
That's what we're
That's
asking.
what we're voting on. Yeah, I know that's what we're voting on. I
Carrie's
just
writing
wanted
it
to
down.
make sure.
Just repeat it and I'll write it.
Huh?
I'm writing.
Oh, you're already writing, so I
Just
don't have to
write-
finish writing mine. Okay.
Just repeat it. for
Just,
me.
does it require a second? How many votes does it take to pass? And just a quick English summary of what it is in parentheses. That's all. Because I think the table needs those 3 things to be effective.
Thank you, Lisa. And we have a second to
And
that,
for
correct?
process, Liz accepted that as a friendly amendment, and Brian, as seconder, nodded his head in agreement. So the motion has been amended in a friendly way.
Paulette is gonna love you after all this.
Okay, can we vote? All those in favor?
No, you not yet.
No.
Vote.
Because we don't have it in front of
One,
us.
we're going to read back what the vote is and the motions that have been recorded.
Let me read for clarity to make sure I'm on top of this. Amend Rule 9 to include a table with each motion type, whether it needs a second, and how many votes, and a plain English summary of
Its function.
its function.
Great.
Perfect.
Yes, Queen.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carrie, can you be sure to pass that down to us?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, now, I don't think we're going to get through all of these tonight. I know, I can't stay.
Not a chance.
I know. Shall we just, well, let's see where we are at 10:30. Okay. Speaking priority, number 10, when 2 or more board members request the right to speak at once, the board chair shall then name the member who is entitled to the floor. Do we have a motion to pass number 10?
Motion to pass 10, 11, and 12 as a block.
Nope. No. This is how we got in trouble.
Is there a second?
Okay, let's not do that. All right, do we have a second? Okay, motion fails. Let's go back to number 10.
Motion to pass 10.
Okay, and we had a
Second.
second, correct?
Lisa,
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Number 11, when any member is about to speak, the member shall confine themselves to the question under debate and avoid personalities. Members should try to avoid speaking more than once on topic. Members should be cognizant of not repeating statements previously made by another member. The chair may set a limit on speaking time for any given agenda item. Do we have a motion to approve number 11?
Motion to approve.
A second? Thank you, Brian. Any discussion? Hope?
So the members should try to avoid speaking more than once, and should means that they still can, because sometimes dialogue allows for that.
Right.
But I do think we should have written in here, but I don't know, Madam Chair, that may just be a chair role of, after others have already had the chance to speak. So like, a chair wouldn't be able to call on someone without having others speak first. So that can be
I think-
left to chair
right.
discretion, I guess, but I personally feel like, yes, you have allowed that and you have followed that, but if I'm thinking from the perspective of future operations, I think it's a better operational procedure that all parties are allowed to speak first before
Make an amendment.
calling on someone else, so I can,
Do you want to make an amendment?
yes. So
Can you
write
write it
that
down? Can you say it out loud as you're writing it down?
Okay.
So we can,
Okay.
Put it after here and
Okay.
ensure that.
So after the chair may set a limit on speaking time for any given agenda item, I would just say, and, I'm going to try to write and talk. And, ensure that all members have had a chance to speak before calling on a member twice.
Or recognize.
Ensure that all members have had a chance to speak.
Okay. Before calling on.
Before calling on a member.
Okay. Did everybody get that?
A chance to speak.
Did you, okay, can you send that down here, Hope, when you finish? Okay, number 11, we're adding, and ensure, the chair may set a limit on speaking time for any given agenda item and ensure that all members have had a chance to speak before calling on a previous speaker. Or
Perfect.
member, previous member. Okay. Can we vote?
There's no second.
Yes, we had a second.
Who was the second?
I think I seconded that one.
Yes,
didn't I?
Brian did.
Okay, can I do a roll
Lisa.
call?
I just have a question.
Before calling a member.
We don't have in here anywhere, people have to be called on to speak.
Twice.
I'm not saying this is where it goes, but
At
that
number
just.
10, isn't that what we just voted on? The board chair shall name the members.
Nope, it doesn't say you have to
Who's
wait your
entitled to
turn.
the floor.
Okay.
No.
No, but the board chair shall then name the member who is entitled to the floor.
That's under interruptions, I
only when
think.
two
we
people.
next.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't see
Okay,
it though.
so, and ensure all members have had a chance to speak before calling
It
a
doesn't say
member
that there either.
on a member twice. Okay? All those in favor?
Roll call, please.
Okay. Patty?
Amending rule number 11, final sentence to say, and ensure that all members have had a chance to speak before calling on a member twice. Liz Barrett. I'm sorry?
No.
Pip Clues.
Abstain.
What?
What?
Abstain.
Abstain.
Oh, abstain.
Oh, she said
She said sane.
Lisa Rappaport.
That's what I heard too.
Lisa Rappaport.
Yes.
Ann Walker.
Yes.
Margot Peabody.
Yes.
Nancy Claiborne.
Yes.
Hope Van Epps.
Yes.
Brian French.
Yes.
Gary Nolte.
Yes.
Passes.
Okay, can you pass that down when you finish? Interruption of a speaking member. No member shall be interrupted by another,
We didn't
except to
vote on-
ask.
Nancy, we didn't vote on number 11.
We
Gotta
didn't
vote
vote
on
on it?
11.
Yes, we
just
did.
voted
Voted on the
That was
amendment.
the amendment.
We voted on the
Oh,
amendment.
I see, okay. Rule number 11, all in favor? Any opposed? Number 11 passes. Okay.
Parliamentary inquiry.
Yes.
I didn't know that we had finished our discussion on that matter. We went straight into that amendment and then we voted on the amendment, but there wasn't time to finish discussing.
Okay. Did you want to discuss?
All members weren't called on.
I'm sorry, I guess I missed that.
Sorry. I did want to get back to what Lisa said, which is that I think we do need somewhere, and it probably did belong in 10, but I think we do need somewhere to say that all members must be recognized before speaking, recognized by the chair.
Should we add that to number 10?
Hesitate to go back to number 10, but
Yeah.
that does seem like that's.
Could be going into 12, too.
Yeah, it could go in.
That's true.
Okay,
Okay.
We'll put it in 12 and then we don't have to go back.
Thanks.
Rule 12, no member shall be interrupted by another member except to ask for a call to order, to correct a mistake, or for explanation. But if any member in speaking or otherwise transgresses the rules of the board chair may call the offending member to order, who shall immediately sit down unless permitted to explain, and the Board, if appealed to, shall decide on the case and without debate.
Motion to approve number 12, Rule 12.
She's not called on. You have to call on someone.
We need to be
You have to be
recognized?
called on before you speak, please.
I just feel like we should have
Lisa?
a
I would like to make an amendment to Rule 12 to say at the start, members shall wait to be acknowledged by the chair before speaking.
Well, make
At the
it
be-
as a whole motion. So the motion to approve Rule 12 with
With that
language
amendment.
to include.
Were you called on?
Well, no, I'm just saying. we
Liz,
need to
please
get-
be quiet.
we need
You
to go
weren't
vote
called
on
on. Do you want to put that at the beginning of the
Yes.
rule? Okay. Members shall be acknowledged by the chair
Before
before
speaking.
speaking.
Second?
Can you write that down on a yellow
There you
copy?
go.
Thank you.
Have we voted yet? No. So the current motion is
Without this.
to vote for rule number 12 with the amendment that at the start it should read, members shall wait to be acknowledged by the chair before speaking.
Yes.
Parliamentary inquiry? There's not a motion to amend. That's why I said she should make the motion with what she wants to say, because there's no motion to amend, there's no motion on the table.
Make the motion to pass it with this amendment. I wrote it down and I passed
It's
it
not
down.
an amendment, it's your motion.
Okay, Liz, you're out of order, please. Is there any discussion on the motion with the amendment? Zach, why don't you go first?
So I was just going to say, in terms of the substance of the concern, that it might be addressed in Rule 13. Draft Rule 13, the first sentence reads, during school board meetings, members shall only communicate with other board members after being recognized by the board chair, and shall do so only in public and on the record.
I think the substance of 13 is different.
So we don't need this amendment on number 12,
Madam Chair,
is what you're saying.
May I be recognized?
Hope.
To your response around discussion, I just have a question around, it says, except to ask for a call to order to correct a mistake or for explanation. It's my understanding that a board member can interrupt the chair if they're requesting a recess. And I don't see that in here. So, are you guys listening?
I'm sorry, I thought you were
That's
talking
okay.
about
Right now, we're violating Rule
Okay.
13.
So if you need to take a moment, that's fine. Please take
We're
your
showing you how not to do Rule 13.
Let me know when
Okay, we're
I can
finished.
address
I thought you were
my
talking
Go ahead,
to
go ahead,
I thought you were
Hope.
talking to Zach. I apologize. I'm ready.
I apologize,
No,
too.
I'm speaking to the chair. So,
Okay, go ahead.
except to ask interruption of speaking member. The exceptions were to ask for a call to order, to correct a mistake, or for an explanation. But my understanding is that you can interrupt the chair if you are calling for a recess. And I don't see that in here, so I just would like that to be added, because if there's a call for order and order is not being brought to the table, then a member should have the right to call for a recess so that order can be brought to the table.
So where would you put that in number 12?
Except to ask for a call to order to correct a mistake, call for recess or for explanation, or wherever you, in that sequence. Yes.
Okay, wait a minute, you lost me.
Well, I'm not
Can you
the
say that again?
Except to ask for, you can put it at the beginning if you want, for a recess, call to order to correct a mistake, or for an explanation. Or you can put it a call to order to correct a mistake, for an explanation, or at request a recess.
So is this a friendly, oh, sorry.
Is this a friendly amendment? I don't
Give me
believe,
a card, I can make it be a friendly
I did
amendment.
it for you. Here, pass it back to her. It's already written.
see if that's okay.
I
Hope.
was trying to take notes.
Okay, do we have, can you wait 1 second? Do we have a motion on the table for number 12 yet? We do. And we have a second?
We do.
Okay, now we have a friendly amendment, which, Hope, what is the friendly amendment?
Add call for recess after exception 2.
Okay. And Zach, what did you, do we need a second for the friendly amendment?
Yes.
Do we have a second for the friendly
I
amendment?
thought
Pip.
Ellen's the originator agrees.
That'll be Lisa.
Okay. Zach,
Understanding.
you want to speak?
So I was just going to say, I think I understand the conceptually what we're trying to do. I was going to say, I think this is by design. So in Rule 9, go back to Rule 9. When a question is under debate, only the following motions shall be received: to adjourn, take recess. But that doesn't, these things that are listed out, these are things you can't interrupt another speaker to do. You have to wait until you're recognized by the chair under this approach. It doesn't mean this is the only approach. You can do other things. But under this, the way in which the council had set it up, you can't interrupt someone else and say, I demand a recess, and I want to vote on it right now. You would have to be recognized by the chair and say, Madam Chair, let's say you're frustrated with somebody in the room, and you're like, we need a break. You can't shout over the person, ask for a recess. In another city council approach, the city council's approach would, you'd wait to be recognized by the chair. Madam Chair, I request that I move that we recess. And is there a second? Yes, there's a second. Any discussion? Great, no, now we're going to recess. As opposed to trying to shout over each other potentially. So I think this was by design, but it doesn't mean you have to do what the city council did.
Well, we do have I don't know how you guys decided over there to list what Lisa's request was. Was it a friendly amendment? Was it a motion? Because it's not
Made a
being laid
motion.
out clearly, but the first part of this rule would be that you would have to be called on by chair.
Right. Parliamentary inquiry?
Okay, we're still on rule number 12, correct?
Correct, and you have a.
Carrie?
Nancy, I'm sorry, I have a parliamentary inquiry.
Well, this is an example of an interruption.
So I just want to, like, I don't care if it's about calling on from the chair. I think that's why I said, like, that's already been added, my understanding. But I would like recess to be part of this list once the chair has called on you.
Okay. What is your parliamentary inquiry, Lisa?
So we had a motion on the table, so that doesn't fit with the motion that's on the table. So it could be a new motion, but it wouldn't be a friendly amendment. That was all that I wanted to clarify on that point.
Why isn't it a friendly amendment?
Because I made the motion, and I'm not seconding, like, I'm not agreeing to that change in the original motion. It doesn't mean it can't happen, but just that.
So now it.
But I'm not opposing your motion. I'm not saying take out.
She's saying you need a second on your amendment. It's not a friendly one, it's an unfriendly one.
Liz, please don't talk.
I'm trying to clarify. I am not suggesting, so do I need to add in here the language? Because my understanding is, I have a second.
Okay, so then it's not.
I'm not asking you.
You can go
and
on.
You are out of order.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. We have a friendly amendment to add what you want to add.
Unfriendly.
So let's vote on the friendly amendment.
I don't think that's what we have
I
right
thought we had a friendly amendment and a second.
It's just an amendment.
It's just it's an amendment, not a friendly.
You guys called it a friendly amendment when you passed it down.
Okay.
I
Do we
didn't
have a
call it
second to Hope's friendly amendment?
Not a friendly amendment.
Just an amendment.
Can I? All right, let's.
It's just an amendment. We need a second to her amendment.
Right.
Then we vote on that, then we go back to the
Original
Back to
motion.
the
Okay, do we have a second for Hope's
amendment,
amendment?
which was to add, can you read it? You have it in front of you.
It was to add call for recess after exception 2, but that was with my understanding that we were adding the with the chair calling on members in this rule. So if we're not doing that, or if the order is now changed, then I will add to my amendment, not friendly amendment, but to my amendment, that add call for recess, add call for recess after except 2, and add that that the chair, I'm sorry, I'm very tired at this point,
okay.
that the chair would need to call on the member. Once the chair has called on the member, that the member has the right to call for recess. Maybe that's a better way of saying it. So.
Okay, so can you?
But wait, then that.
I'd like to
Has
separate
anyone
those.
seconded it?
There are, I think that they
Nancy,
are.
I've had my hand up over here for a while.
I know, but I called on Pip. Pip.
I think that they already are separated because you amended your original motion to include the first statement that we wanted to add. So that's already on the table. So you don't have to add that to what you're suggesting.
Well, that's what I thought, but now I'm being told that.
I think you're
But
making an
otherwise,
amendment to that
this is
larger.
What?
I think you're making an additional amendment, but this one already stands as part of the motion.
That's how I
So if we approve the motion, Lisa's amendment will be approved. We didn't vote specifically on her amendment.
Right.
So we should-
But we
should
said
vote
that
on
we
the
had to
original
vote on mine
motion?
first, which I think is backwards personally. I mean, so, because Zach is saying, well, we should not be able to do this without the chair calling on the member. But that's exactly what this rule is going to imply after we vote on Lisa's. So it's like, okay, kill this. So I guess we'll vote on Lisa's and then kill this, vote on Lisa's, and then I'll just bring it back up and see if I get a second.
Brian, Kerry.
Nancy.
I feel,
Just a minute, Liz.
I feel like this is already covered in Rule 9, to be honest with you, because in order to have debate or motions during debate, you have to be recognized, and recess is one of them. So I think it is actually already covered.
Okay,
I'm
Carrie.
happy to withdraw my friend.
That is exactly what I was going to say.
Okay.
Brian and I
Hope-
are vibing tonight.
You're in sync.
We're in sync over
Hope
here.
is willing to withdraw her motion. Who was the seconder?
My amendment.
Your her amendment. Pip, were you the seconder? Who
No,
was the-
Brian.
Oh, we didn't have one.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we're ready to vote.
Nancy, I have.
Okay, go ahead, Liz. Make it brief.
The only thing that's missing is the point of order. So you can interrupt somebody and not be recognized and call for point of order. And so I wonder from Zach, is that anywhere in these rules that I've missed?
It says
And-
it says right there, Liz. It
That's-
says, except to
but
ask
this
for a
is-
call to order. It
And
says
first-
it right
first
there.
sentence.
Okay, I do a motion to adjourn after these other motions. I need to go home.
Okay, let's vote on number 12.
May I make
Oh.
a very minor suggestion?
Yes.
Where it says that the offending member to, where it says that the person shall immediately sit down, I wonder if we could modify sit down to stop speaking, because we do not stand in this body when we're speaking.
Okay, does everybody?
I will second that amendment if it is
Okay.
made.
All right,
It was
Pip made it. Kerry seconded it. Does everybody agree to that amendment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, go back to the original motion. Do we approve number 12? All those in favor?
Are we doing an amendment?
12 is
Lisa's
amendment.
amendment?
No, we're on number 12. We already approved the amendment, stop speaking, instead of sit down. Now we're
But
voting
Lisa
on number
had
12.
Amendment on the, okay.
We withdrew that. Hope withdrew her.
I know, but Lisa's
that's
had,
not
like, approve a
Lisa's.
motion with amendment, so what is the motion on the table?
The motion is number 12.
With that.
To pass with that language.
Members, the first sentence is members shall wait to be acknowledged by the chair before speaking. And then the rest of the verbiage there, but where it says sit down, it says change that to stop speaking. All in favor? Any opposed? Number 12 passes. Okay, shall we adjourn our meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Wait a minute. Let's try to finish the agenda. Oh, we have to reopen the, committee updates. Do we have any committee updates?
What are we doing with?
We'll put this on for the next agenda.
We need a motion to do that?
Okay, let's have a motion.
I move to
Rule
table.
13 to 30, we'll do it our next meeting, October 24th.
So moved.
Second.
Tip and Brian. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. All right, committee updates. Do we have any committee updates? Carrie?
The Portrait of a Graduate is having our 5th committee meeting next week. And I'm sure Zach looks forward to updating you and Nancy on.
Thank you. Thank you, Carrie. Anything else? I am attending a meeting tomorrow night where I'm representing the schools in the Citywide Neighborhood Committee. They do a different ward every few months, and they have a Public Works, Police, Fire, School, and we all give a little presentation, and then people can ask us questions. Margot's done it before. I've done it. So I'm doing that tomorrow night. Is anybody else doing anything?
It's Ward 5, isn't it?
Ward 5, Don Darrow.
No, that's
No,
not
I'm sorry.
What's
Right.
tomorrow night?
That's something.
It's tomorrow night.
What is it?
The Citywide Neighborhood Committee does a visit to every ward throughout the year. Tomorrow night is Ward 5. Okay, any other committee updates? We have to reopen the public comment session. Is anybody in the presence here that would like to speak?
I would tell you that in the process, well, first, Matt's gone. There's a reason why Matt is gone. So Matt is gone because as we were developing the rules, what became apparent was there is existing school board policy which would not have online Zoom participation at the end of the meeting,
Right, at the reopening of the public
at
comment.
the reopen the public comment.
Okay,
So
where is that?
people in public,
On the new rules?
it's in its existing board policy, actually.
Under
So-
public
Policy
comment.
10?
And it was in,
No, that the second round, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead.
okay, go
Mona.
ahead.
But the second, the board policy that was an amendment by the New Hampshire School Board Association that came down is that if it's not 30 minutes, you have to reopen it, but the second round does not have to be, our
Okay.
policy says cannot be on Zoom. That if
You
you
have to be in
reopen it, you have
person.
to be in person. Thank you for clarifying.
Okay. Do we have the next meeting? One of the rules says we have to announce our next meeting before we adjourn. Our next meeting is October 24th, is that right?
No, we have a meeting.
Well, we have
17th,
our
right?
next board meeting, our next public board meeting. Yes. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.